Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round 7 of the 2020 Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship. Alex Goldschmidt and Phil Kinch once again back in the saddle. Good evening, Phil. How are you, buddy? You keeping well?
I'm not too bad, sir. How's your good self?
Yeah, all pretty good. All pretty good. So we have travelled to a circuit simply known as Croft, just based near Dalton-on-Tees in North Yorkshire. It's 2.1 miles, 3.4 kilometres, 12 turns, and a fantastic circuit in its own right, isn't it, Phil?
It is. It's got some wonderful corners to it. It's a very... I almost want to go as far as a mini Spa, but that might be overselling it a little. It's got fast corners, slow corners, a mix to keep the drivers on their toes, and it always provides some good action when we have the touring cars racing there.
Yeah. Also, the race lap record of this circuit, actually, overall, is by a man who's currently with Racing Point in Formula One, Sergio Perez, back with T-Sport and British F3 in 2008, set the all-time lap record of a 1 minute 13.656. However, Phil, we know that in some respects it's going to be very different here in touring cars. However, let's have a look at the season standings. Chris Butcher from Smile Power Racing comes into this round as the leader of the championship on 233 points and will get the maximum championship weight allocation of 60 kilos to his Astra. Sam Fowler from SRR Motorsport will be in second position, get 54 kilos. He's on 226 points. 10 points away from him, from Zansho Simsport in the leading trio of Ford Focuses, who just end up rounding out the top 5, is Dan Kell, followed by Matt Richards and Lewis McGlade, who round out the top 5. Kieran Shanks, I understand, is no longer in the championship. They have decided to withdraw for reasons behind the scenes. Mike Bell from Smile Power Racing in 7th. Scott Mitchell is in 8th, and he will get 18 kilos of ballast. He took a podium last time out when we were racing, and some good running from the Mercedes A45 from Kings Racing. Max Tad and Ben Willis round out the top 10, and they are the ones that will get success ballast. But we do have some newcomers with regards to it. Ed Straw joins Kings Racing, and he will get 45 kilos on his vehicle. We've also got Sylvain Vessier with E-Team Brit 2, because they have now got a second team in the championship, running with 4 cars in total, 3 BMWs already. But Sylvain Vessier will jump behind the wheel of the Subaru Levorg. We've then got Jean-Michel Loriot running instead of Matthew Clipp alongside Dan Hyde at Cadan Casual Apex. Matt Webb and Ross McGregor, R&Co, join as a brand new team as we are getting things underway here in qualification. 3 15 lap races here. The tyre selection for this round is the medium, but the hards are the option tyre, Phil, and it's going to be very interesting to see who decides to jump on getting the options out of the way first before going through to see how the mediums are going to fare around this circuit.
It is. It's almost like the old game of tactics, really. It's those who decide they can make it work or find out if they can make it work, and those who will also be watching and deciding which race they can put it into action. As we saw last time at Snetterton, with all of the different options in place, soft, medium and hard, and also the wet tyre almost in some cases, that was a bit more of a lottery. This time, as we can see, Mike Bell really hanging the Astra out as he comes out of sunny out. This time it's an easy choice of hard and medium. Hard should be longer, go more durable. However, it may take a little while to get up to grip. So yeah, it's going to be the game of tactics and see who wins on that one.
Yeah, so this will decide the grid positions for race 1 a little bit later on this evening. So 3 races, and it's going to be. We've seen a lot of action all the way through the season so far, Phil, and I think here at Croft it's going to be no exception.
Oh, of course. Croft always lends itself to some cracking racing. And as you can see, Mike Bell throwing the Astra again through the chicane on his way up to Tower Bend. We've seen some cracking races in touring cars themselves at Croft. And also these guys so far in the season, we're getting down to the nitty gritty now. We're in round 7, 3 rounds left after tonight. So everyone will be pushing as hard as they can. There's close racing to be expected. And yeah, I dare say we're going to see some good moves and some great racing once more.
Well, with just under 10 minutes of qualification still remaining, Dan Kell is leading the way in terms of the timesheets. Mike Bell rounding out the top 3 just behind Toby Davis in the Astra, who's just 15 thousandths off of Dan Kell in the hunt for pole position. Newcomer Ross McGregor rounding out the top 3. He's just under a quarter of a second off of Dan Kell, who's leading the way in terms of the hunt for pole position. Scott Mitchell, Lewis McGlade, Chris Butcher, Max Tad, Scott Sovic rounding out the top 9 positions, just covered by just under 8.5 tenths of a second. So still very close here as well. I don't know if we just lost Phil there for a second, but...
oh, there we go.
There we go.
Press the reset button and see what happens.
I was going to say it's now button pressing, not false teeth this time around.
No.
But Phil, as we say, this is just going to really sort of showcase how interesting the fights are going to be, not just throughout the field. You've got the likes of Sandro Ballesteros. I mean, Max Spooner was absolutely overjoyed last time out when he actually scored some points. As a last-minute dash to the finish in race 3, as Jack Nichols goes top of the timesheets there. So pretty good job there from the Kings Racing driver.
Jack is definitely someone after his horrific bad luck. I think it's safe to say at Snetterton in races 1 and 2, he is really due some better time here at Croft, and hopefully a happier hunting ground for him this evening. As we see the new Team E Brit Subaru, that's looking rather lovely, Alex.
Yeah, the E-Team Brit 2 team, Sylvain Vessier, who is actually from the world of karting, competing in senior Rotax at the moment, running the 129 Subaru, and he's already improved on all 3 sectors. Now, I did have a little bit of insider knowledge, thank you very much for the E-Team Brit manager Max Spooner, who's running in the 63 BMW. He said, just watch out for Sylvain. Sylvain, he might be quick out the blocks. He's up again in Sector 1 by 4 tenths. So the Subaru has been the dark horse, let's say. And in the hands of Monsieur Vessier, it looks to be pretty good. I mean, he's up on Sector 1. Let's just see how he gets on here, as it's, E-Team Brit running on 2 rear-wheel drive platforms, so they're trying to maximise their advantage of straight line speed, but also getting off the start, as Scott Mitchell now makes it a Kings Racing 1-2 at the moment, just 76 thousandths of his teammate. And this is how close it's getting, Phil. Dan Kell is 6 thousandths of a second adrift down in 3rd.
This is great stuff, isn't it? They're pushing as hard as they can, trying to get those laps in before the time runs out. Just over 7 minutes left to go in the session, and it's great to see such a close field already in qualifying alone. This is really boding well for when the races get underway.
So yellow in Sector 2 as Sylvain Vessier runs a little bit wide coming out of the final corner, as Nichols has set the benchmark with 1 minute 21.693. Scott Mitchell a 121. 769. Here's Daniel Hyde in the number 2 Cadan Casual Apex MG6 GT, famously initially run by Jason Plato of all people, back when it was the Tesco Momentum KX Energy team under 888.
Yes, of course. Yes, the good old days of the MG arriving and seeing some wonderful things. I was lucky enough actually to be at Croft in one of the first years he was running that, and unfortunately had a bit of an incident with teammate Andy Neat at the time, as we're watching Daniel Slattery. Oh, it's a really big moment. He's lost that, gone slightly wide, touched the grass on the way into Sunny Inn. Can he rescue this? It doesn't look it. No, he's facing the wrong way, unfortunately. That's a really big moment, a scary moment, unfortunately. There's a Mike Bell, I think that is, that's come through.
Yeah, in one of the Smart Power Racing Astras. So Daniel Hyde he's improved by nearly 3/4 of a second on Sector 1, as it looks like someone locked up going in there, as you can just see now. That looks to be one of the E-Team Brit cars just up ahead of the number 2 MG. As again, Hyde up again on Sector 2, so another personal best. And he's, Daniel Hyde hasn't had the best run of luck, I think, like a lot of drivers in this championship so far over the last few rounds, where it's just been a case of, I'll just see how I fare, and now it's a case in point of him just having to go for broke and seeing what happens, really, isn't it?
It is, and if you get the lap right here at Croft with all its twists, turns and fast corners, you really can be rewarded with a really good lap time, as we see Ed Straw in the very striking livery in the 3rd Kings Racing Mercedes. This one's definitely going to stick out, so we'll keep an eye on Ed this evening as he makes his debut in the series. Through Barcroft into Sunny Inn, slight touch of the brakes, nice amount of curb, that's pretty good. Sunny out again, nice and clean, keeping the speed up. Just lost. He's about just over 3/10 down on the first sector. As he comes through the complex, makes his way through the lovely viewing point in real life for the fans when they are there, and up into the hairpin. And if you get a good entry here, in fact, it looks as though he's slowed right down, so he may lose out time-wise on this.
Well, he's on an out lap at the moment, so that's what it's showing. You can see as Nichols still leading the way. So at the moment, it is a Kings Racing 1-2. Ed Straw in 13th. As Toby Davis now goes to the top of the timesheets, a whopping 0.173 quicker than Jack Nichols, a 1 minute 21.520. There is Scott Mitchell in the 22. Kings Racing Mercedes A45 with Ed Straw running the 17. So we're into the latter stages of qualifying, just 3 minutes and 50 seconds to go. Scott Mitchell looking to improve, but at the moment he's down on both first and second sectors. And at the minute, I'm just keeping an eye on the E-Team Brit guys, who's actually running quickest at the moment. And 13-year-old Sandro Ballesteros, who I understand is the youngest driver on the grid in the number 19 BMW 125i M Sport, is currently in 18th position, and he's just under 2/10 off of Graham Slattery, who returns, and then Jean-Michel Loriot in the 88 Cadan Casual Apex car is rounding out the top 16, whereas Ross McGregor from R&Co Motorsport in the 888 is rounding out the top 5, and he's only 3/10 off of Toby Davis. There's Lewis McGlade just quickly going into the pits, and Max Tad yet to bring the headlight show back into full prominence, but I'm sure we'll see that as of race 1.
I'm looking forward to that. We always know Max puts on a good show.
Well, it was quite funny having a good chat with Ben Willis this weekend, actually, for the Simply Race British Championships, which just had their first round at the Simply Race facility at Milton Keynes this past Sunday. And we did have a little bit of a giggle about that, the Max Tad headlight show. And I said, whenever Phil and I see it happening, we know that something's in the works, let's say. What's happened to Max Spooner? Asked Mark Russell on Facebook. He's currently down in 22nd position. He's done a best effort of a 1 minute 24.613. So the good thing is, please feel free to put your comments in. I'm getting them via Twitch, Facebook, YouTube. So they are coming through. So any updates I can give you as and when they happen. Bradley Brockies, the fourth car. Well, effectively, you can have a 3-car team, but if you have another car, you have to run a separate squad, which is why Sylvain Vessier is in the E-Team Brit 2 squad. There's a solo Subaru entry itself. As now Bradley Brockies returns with 1 minute and 45 still on the clock to go. But Toby Davis looks to be looking pretty good on provisional pole here. As Jack Nichols, obviously there have been decisions post round 6 last time out at Snetterton. So we'll just see how the rest of the field tries to improve. Looks like Mike Bell is on a good lap. His last lap was a 1 minute 22.8, but he's up in sectors 1 and 2. Sandro Ballesteros has had an improvement on sector 1, but has not made an improvement on sector 2. There is Max Spooner in the 63, hustling his way through the chicane. Yellow in sector 2. And looks like Scott Sovic in the Smile Power Racing Astra rounds out the top 10 covered, Phil, by just over 9/10 of a second.
Nice and close is what we like.
Indeed, very much the case. As there is Toby Davis, he's decided, let's see if I can throw caution to the wind and do a Lewis Hamilton in quali. Unfortunately, in this championship, you don't get a party mode, Toby, I'm afraid.
We don't need them. They have enough fun as it is during the races, let alone in qualifying.
Exactly.
Why would they need a party mode?
Or DAS.
Or DAS, yeah, or DAS. This is touring cars. We like it simple.
Oh, moment there for Toby Davis. Right, okay.
No.
Now here is a moment for... Oh, now that is Bradley Brockies. That car is completely sideways, but he's managed to keep it on the black stuff. But then goes grass tracking, then hits escape. Right, time about to expire for 15 minutes of qualification here at Croft. And Toby Davis has crossed the line. He will get a chance to see if he can actually better his 1 minute 21.520. because with that moment he had just a few seconds ago, well, he's decided to park it and thinks, well, I don't think Jack Nicholls might get any closer, but Nicholls nevertheless is out on a hot lap. He's improved our personal best in Sector 1. Scott Mitchell has improved and has gone to within 33 thousandths of his Kings Racing teammate in the 29, as Aidan Millward up by nearly 4 tenths in Sector 1, down by over half a second in Sector 2. The option 13 SimSport driver trying to make it through to the latter part of the circuit, as now he'll come to the tight left-hander and then come around the final corner, put the power down. Let's see if he does improve this time around. He does by 2 thousandths of a second, 1 minute 22.814, but does not improve his position up the order of things. But what a lap though, Phil, from Toby Davis.
That is impressive stuff. That is really impressive stuff. It's good to see. And again, Toby's another one of these guys that could do with a really good performance. If he can get this, if he can keep hold of pole position before the end of the session and retain that, then hopefully he can have a better performance and showcase some of the talent we've seen in previous races from him.
Well, Max Spooner will cross the line in 22nd position. And that really is about it. Now, obviously, there are always discussions post qualification in terms of, like, say, how stewarding side of things do happen, and we get regular information as to what has happened previously. But Toby Davis takes pole position for the first of 3 races here at Croft. Jack Nicholls in second, ahead of teammate Scott Mitchell from Kings Racing in the 22. Dan Kell in fourth, ahead of teammate from Zancho Simsport, Lewis McGlade. Ross McGregor, making his debut in the VMO Touring Car UK Championship here at Croft, will line up on the outside of row 3 in the 888. Just over 3 tenths of a second adrift, ahead of current championship leader who has the maximum amount of ballast, Chris Butcher in the 65 from Smile Power Racing, who is ahead of Mike Bell. Max Tad from SRR and Smile Power Racing, Scott Sovic, round out the top 10 positions, covered by just over 9 tenths. Ben Willis and Phil Morby, that's 2 Subarus on row 6, ahead of Aidan Millward and Ed Straw, the newcomer for Kings Racing, one of the new debutants this evening in the number 17 Mercedes. Daniel Slattery in the 24 MG will have the 88 of Jean-Michel Loriot from Cadan Casual Apex alongside, with Matt Webb from R&Co Motorsport in the 444 in 17th, Graham Slattery in 18th, Sandro Ballesteros in 19th, with Daniel Hyde completing the top 20 positions in the number 2 MG from Cadan Casual Apex. And then rounding out the order, Sylvain Vessier from E-Team Brit 2 in the 129 Subaru will be ahead of E-Team Brit stablemates, let's say, not teammates because they're in a separate squad, Max Spooner and Bradley Brockies. But it's going to look very interesting, isn't it, here, Phil?
It is, yes. They've pushed really hard through qualifying. We've got a nice close field. It's good to see some different names at the front, the likes of Toby Davis, Jack Nicholls, Scott Mitchell. They've got the Zancho SimSport pair of Dan Kell and Lewis McGlade up there as well. So we'll see the regular fight of numbers as we have done previously between Smile Power Racing and the fleet of Fords, as I like to call them. But it's also interesting to see how the new guys go as well. So I'm really looking forward to 3 interesting races this evening. It's going to be good fun.
Yep, so we've got 15 laps around the fantastic circuit here at Croft, 2.1 miles, 3.4 kilometres. I know for a fact that warm-up is currently underway. 17 degrees Celsius, not a cloud in the sky here in Yorkshire, and we're set to get underway very, very soon with our first of 3 races, but we'll be back after just a couple of videos. Be back in a few moments' time.
allow us to be able to compete on a level playing field, we've had to use existing technology to create a set of hand controls that allow us to race on a level playing field. So if you imagine you're going to chicane at 150 miles an hour, our disabled drivers have to be able to go through the chicane at the same speed as the able-bodied driver. That means braking, steering, gear down, on the throttle, off the throttle, on the brake. Now, if we keep losing half a second or a few tenths of a second at every chicane, we might be the best driver on the track, but we can't be competitive. So that was the criteria that I gave the engineers, that if we can't do that, then we can't go racing. Al Locke is he's the brains behind our team. He's our race engineer. I tell him what I want and how I want it. He says it's not possible, and I know it's possible because I believe in Al. The cost of the hand controls varies from about £5,000 to about £7,500. That's because we've managed to find a manufacturer in Slovenia that does all this specialist engineering. None of this would be possible without Al's British engineering.
The main thing that inspires me to keep going with Team Brit is the quest for constant improvement. You know, we've developed a set of hand controls, and we're not a team that's going to rest on their laurels. We're constantly pushing for better and faster developments.
Right, we're set to get underway with our first of 3 races this evening here. Round 7 of the virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship being held here at the fantastic circuit in Yorkshire, Croft. So, Phil, thoughts coming into this? Who are some dark horses we need to watch out for this evening? I think Ross McGregor is one of them, first of all.
I agree. I'll be honest, he's on my list. As I've mentioned before, definitely Toby Davis to see if he can actually have a better time of things. Interested to see how the Smile Power Racing trio go as well. We know the Zansho SimSport trio are strong, so looking for a bit more from Smile Power Racing to see what they can come up with tonight with the game of numbers as we've normally seen before. And also very interested to see how Ed Straw does on his debut this evening, along with the other drivers as well.
Yep, still very much a case of what could unfurl before our very eyes, as we have seen over the past few weeks. So we know that a big thank you to Simply Race, who've been saying, who are you supporting tonight? The live timing is also available on the Twitch stream as well. So please feel free. Matt Richards, who's competing tonight, has gone #Zanshow, and then he's put wait. Matt, you realise who you're racing for this evening?
This could be fun already. Battle line's drawn.
No, Oh, well, Matt isn't feeling 100%. Thank you very much to Mike Yao from Simply Race for giving us a heads up. So Matt Richards not feeling 100%. He's going to be supporting Ross McGregor and Matt Webb at R&Co Motorsport in the 888 and the 444. So thank you, Matt. Glad to hear from you, mate. Hope you feel better soon, and we see you back for round 8 in the next couple of weeks or so. So Phil, yeah, Ross McGregor is one of them. I think Scott Mitchell again could really do well here. Jack Nicholls, if he gets that sort of like chip out of the shoulder that happened as a result of the rolling incidents that happened last time out. You know, I think those two Mercedes, they have been threatening at points, haven't they?
They have, and I believe Scott Mitchell's already had a podium previously, so there's form there for him to build on. And definitely, you know, we've almost got a reverse of what would normally happen at Croft. Croft's normally a rear-wheel drive circuit, so we've got a lot of front-wheel drive cars up front, and especially with the King's Racing team, it's really good to see that they've able to get the places in qualifying, get the speed in there early. I really do think we're looking at potentially at least a podium, if not 2. I hesitant to guess who's going to get one, but it would be good to see them have a definite change of form after Snetterton.
Yeah, I mean, Jack also showed prowess earlier on in the season when we got going. And it seems like the banter on YouTube has already happened between Ben Brown from Cam Sport saying, knackered you out of the weekend, too much action, Matt, as in the Simply Race British Championships, which Ben Brown actually did double duty in both the Clio Cup and also the touring cars as well. So, yeah, I mean, Matt's gone and put the excuse, well, something like that. It's all about the banter here at VMO.
It is.
But a big thank you to people starting to interact with us. Also, Simon Steele on one of the shared links in one of the multiple sim racing groups that I've been posting this all in. He said, greetings to Sylvain Vessier, who starts from the lower part of the grid, but it's early days for the 129, normally runs with the 29 in Rotax racing circles here in the UK. So I think we're going to be getting underway very, very shortly with our first of 15 lap races here at Croft. And again, we're going to, you say about the numbers game, but I think it's about who's going to strategize the most. I mean, we've seen it where tyres have fallen off a cliff. We've had drama as a result of it, Phil. And that's very much the case here at Croft, because when you're going through places like you come through Clairvaux, Hawthorns, through the chicane, as we now go on to the formation lap. So let's run through the grid ahead of the first of three 15-lap races here. So Toby Davis and Jack Nicholls on the front row. Oh, front-wheel drive versus front-wheel drive. And then it happens again for row 2. Scott Mitchell and Dan Kell, respectively, in the 22 and the 89. Then we go to row 3, which has got Lewis McGlade and Ross McGregor on that. So, and that will be the numbers 78 and 888. Mike Bell and Max Tad will round out the top 4 rows, and the number 5 Smile Power Racing, Vauxhall Astra, and the number 35 SRR Motorsport, BMW Scott Sovic and Ben Willis. So that is Vauxhall against Subaru on the 5th row. Then it's Phil Morby and Aidan Millward, and then that's a double dose of rear-wheel drive on row 6. Ed Straw in the King's Racing number 17 Mercedes will be alongside Daniel Slattery in the 24 Rage Racing MG. Then we've got Jean-Michel Loriot running out the top 15, and he will have alongside him Matt Webb in the R&Co Motorsport 444. Graham Slattery, Sandro Ballesteros, Daniel Hyde, and Sylvain Vessier round out the top 20 positions, with Max Spooner, Chris Butcher, and Bradley Brockes rounding out the 23. Now, obviously, there were penalties issued post Snetterton, so Chris Butcher's position is very much reflective of what happened post Snetterton. I can't remember the wheres, the Y4s, and everything like that. However, it is part of the stewarding process, as Toby Davis will quickly be joined by Jack Nicholls on the front row. Then it will be Scott Mitchell and Dan Kell, Lewis McGlade and Ross McGregor. Oh, I like this. The R&Co duo are running Ford Focuses.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So the Focus game goes up another level ahead of 15 laps here at Croft. We just await for everything to get underway here for the first of 3 races this evening. We'll be speaking to the top 3 for race 3 later on this evening, as we wait to get our first salvo of action underway. The run down to Clairvaux will be anybody's guess as to who will get it in the who will get up the inside going into Hawthorns, as you can just see how eager Ed Straw is to get off the line. And now we go lights out and racing for the first time. Great start by Toby Davis, as now Jack Nicholls will try and get the run down, as through the eye of the needle is being thread, as Kell up the inside of Mitchell, as Nicholls defends for second position. Kell runs a little bit wide through the quick chicane through into Hawthorn Bend, as the field makes its way through into chicane, into the left-hander for the first time. Down the back straightaway towards the right hand of Tower Bend. But what a start there, Phil, by Toby Davis. Absolutely nailed it.
I'm also impressed by the start of Max Tad. He's jumped from 8th to 4th within the first couple of corners, and although he's then the headlights are on. The headlights are on already. He's going for it.
The Max Tad headlight show now being pressurised by the number 22 of King's Racing's Scott Mitchell, Lewis McGlade in the 78 Ford Focus from Sancho Simsport just behind. Then it is Ross McGregor. I'm liking the livery on those focuses.
They do look good.
Yeah, there's a bit of there's plenty of white. There's a bit of looks like a bit of purple, a little bit of fluorescent green. So really nice little livery they turned out as McGregor coming under fire from Mike Bell from Smile Power Racing as they now head through sunny in and sunny out. If you put a side in between them, you'll probably end, before they go through sunny in, sunny out.
Contact from Mike Bell as he goes past McGregor, or at least tries to go past McGregor on the inside of the hairpin. If he can keep the run on the outside, he might be able to get him into Clairvaux. It looks as though McGregor's going to try and hold him off. It's a really good early move, but you've got to really commit to the hairpin. Yeah, McGregor's held him off as they go into Clairvaux.
So, but still, Mike Bell still keeping with number 888 Ford Focus of Ross McGregor. And now they go back up towards yellow in Sector 1, so there might have been a little bit of an incident. If we do get a replay, we'll talk you through it very, very shortly. But some great racing up and down the order. It's a lot cleaner than it has been in the first few races, first couple of races we've seen, as Ben Willis and Phil Morby, the two Subarus, battling tooth and nail for what is 9th position, but Ben Willis getting away. Right, let's have a look at a replay here. Now, this could be why we got a yellow in Sector 1. Oh, now, that was Daniel Hyde ahead of Bradley Brocky, straight into the bollards, heading towards the outside of Clairvaux, and MG doesn't like that.
No, it doesn't like that at all. Slightly offline, just over the white line. That's all it's taken for the back to kick out and spin round. Although he survived the gravel trap, so thankfully he's managed to keep going. So once again, Mike Bell is really pushing Ross McGregor as they come through into the hairpin once again. Though he's trying to late dive, put the teeth in. Last time around, it didn't work too well. Actually, you got Ed Straw. Freaking wide at the hairpin.
Now that was not really a good idea. Now that was Slattery trying to go up the inside of Ed Straw, who in turn was getting up the inside of one of the, looks to be, I think that might have been Loriot going through, as now it's, Sylvain Vessier up the inside as more bollards taken out. That was, Rage Racing. There was a Rage Racing car, and I think that might have been Graham Slattery that went airborne, as now there is more tussling. Chris Butcher. Ben Brown just goes, that dive. Yes, I think both myself and Phil were quite... I mean, Ed Straw has had just literally the VMO Touring Car UK welcome quite literally thrown at him up the inside and around the outside going through Clairvaux. There's contact between Max Tad and also Dan Kell, and that allows Scott Mitchell to springboard up 2 positions up to P3. But now Dan Kell quickly on the back bumper of the number 22 from King's Racing, as Max Tad, the Max Tad headlight show is now quickly being accompanied by the brightly coloured Ford Focus of Ross McGregor, who's got Lewis McGlade up his inside. You've then got Mike Bell just behind, as now Scott Mitchell leads the battle for 3rd position. But in the meantime, look at the gap between the 2 leaders. Jack Nicholls is trying to close on Toby Davis. And what's more, Jack Nicholls has got the fastest lap of the race so far, a 1:22.063. The fastest from Toby Davis, because he's literally had no assistance from the start, a 1:22.323. But yeah, let's just have a look at this replay. And that is, Graham Slattery actually, right. In the words of Limp Bizkit, rolling there.
You couldn't help yourself.
I couldn't help myself, but yeah, I mean, the thing is that when you stack it into the tyre barriers, it's going to flip the car over. And if that was real life, now that is major disaster for the headlight warrior, Max Tad there. He's dropped down to 8th position, having been up as high as P4, as Dan Kell now leading a scrap just behind, which is being led by Lewis McGlade. Then it is Mike Bell from Smile Power Racing. R&Co Motorsports, Ross McGregor is now ahead of Max Tad. And if I'm honest here, now we're going to have a look at a replay. Now this is what happened with Max Tad. And just up ahead, that looks like he has got...
That's Dan Kell just ahead.
And he's
tower.
And he's just hit him.
Yeah.
He's just...
gone at the back.
Yeah, I mean, he's just braked late. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And he's not timed it, and it's just gone... that was a Scandinavian flick that Dan Kell really didn't want.
Yeah, assistance not necessary, thank you very much.
Well, there was definitely a case of more than batteries just included on that front, as that's a great move up the inside by Mike Bell on Lewis McGlade for what is 5th position. Ross McGregor is going to wait for his opportunity to strike past the Sancho Simsport driver, who now rounds out the top 6. Max Tad just behind. And you can just see that the blue paintwork as we go to the leaders. Jack Nicholls closing on Toby Davis, and he has been running over 0.3 of a second quicker than the Astra as they go through.
I think there's a slight touch there, actually.
There might have
assistance.
Slight touch there, but to be honest with you, Toby Davis, being a real-life racer in his own right, very, very well accomplished. As now Jack Nicholls looking to go up the inside, can't get through. Davis shuts the door, and I think they're now going through sunny in and sunny out into the complex. But Toby Davis managing to hold on for the moment through into hairpin, and a tighter apex taken by Jack Nicholls. He gets a good run out of the corner as they go down to Clairvaux. So line astern between the two leaders. Just over 0.3 of a second separates them as we're now on to lap number 6 out of 15 again. Davis, you can tell how hard he's pushing because he's locking up on the rears, going through the corners as they go through Hawthorne Bend. Now into the chicane and onto the back straightaway, up the long straight towards Tower Bend. And look at how quickly Jack Nicholls is just swarming all over Toby Davis. That Mercedes has got a real turn of pace this evening.
It's about on the outside of Tower Bend, which is not always one that works, but if you can do the switchback...
contact with the old...
there.
Yeah, touch between the left front of Nicholls and the right rear of Toby Davis. But if I'm honest with you, I'm sure that Toby Davis is probably going to be having a bit of banter with Jack Nicholls, saying, "You really pushed me, man, but hey, keep the touching down to a minimum." Well, and then Jack will go, "Well, there's touring cars, isn't it? Come on, rubbing's racing."
Exactly.
Yeah. And the thing is the stewards will probably see that it's close racing. I mean, from their perspective, in some aspects, but obviously from our perspective, it's rather exciting. But look at Scott Mitchell. He's closing, and he's just done a 1:23.004 on the last lap. So, you did say about podiums. Well,
look, Nicholls for the lead. On the inside of the hairpin, perfect move. Davis has gone wide at the hairpin and Nicholls is in front. Now, the interesting thing I was going to point out was Nicholls has been chasing Davis for the last few laps from the start, and he's been the faster car. So now the tables have turned. If Nicholls can stay in front and build a gap, then Davis won't be able to cut back at him. Well, that's not stopping the Astra driver pushing hard through Clairvaux, and as they come into the chicane, you can see there is a small gap developing already. So it might just be Nicholls may just have the pace here as Mitchell is also closing down as well.
Well, look at it from this perspective, Phil. Right, Jack Nicholls, a 1:23.805 last time around. Toby Davis, a 1:24.323. Scott Mitchell, a 1:23.342. And look behind him. He's bringing along, this is really weird because I'm going to say it, Kell, Bell, McGlade and McGregor are coming along for the ride as well. I was sort of like thinking, do I say it? Yeah, I better. Sometimes it's easy to go through surnames. Scott Mitchell, there's a yellow in Sector 3. Looks like Graham Slattery's MG sustained too much damage in that rollover and unfortunately has retired. So at the moment, Jack Nicholls leads from Toby Davis. Scott Mitchell, Dan Kell, Mike Bell round out the top 5. Lewis McGlade, Ross McGregor, Max Tad, Phil Morby and Ben Willis round out the top 10. Scott Sovic in 11th. Matt Webb, Chris Butcher up to 13th now ahead of Ed Straw. Jean-Michel Loriot rounds out the top 15 ahead of Aidan Millward, Daniel Slattery, Sylvain Vessier on the debut. Currently 18th in the Subaru Levorg 129 for E-Team Brit 2 ahead of Sandro Ballesteros, Daniel Hyde, Max Spooner and Bradley Brocky. So 22 out of the 23 cars still circulating. But you can just sense that Dan Kell is closing hand over fist on Scott Mitchell for the final step on the podium here in race 1 at Croft. Lap number 8 out of 15. And Nicholls is pulling away considerably. He just did a 1:23.231. Toby Davis a 1:23.561. And it's the slowest out of the top 3. Mitchell runs wide. Now, was there a little bit of a touch there from Dan Kell? Not too sure. Didn't really quite catch it.
Not sure on that one.
But Kell might have made the move through cleanly as Bell to the outside of the 22 through the chicane. That was close, and he makes the move through. And I think if Scott Mitchell is not careful, just like it happens there, leaves the door open, and all of a sudden, Lewis McGlade. But when you think about it, when you've got 2, 3, 4 cars on your back bumper, you're going to have to react quickly as now Ross McGregor tries to get past the number 22, but this time Mitchell shuts the door nice and cleanly.
See that small amount, if there was a small amount of contact there, Mitchell's been hung out to dry, unfortunately, through the Jim Clark S's. Everyone's been able to take advantage of the fact he's on the wrong line and sit there and just pass him straight away. Although he is fighting back against Ross McGregor. You've got the inside line at the hairpin. If he can try and stay ahead, again, it's difficult. If you can pass and stay ahead at the hairpin, you're fine. But coming to Clairvaux, McGregor's got the inside line for the right-hander. Up front as Kelbell and McLeod fight against each other for the last podium position. And again, it is that classic game of numbers. You've got the two focuses versus the Astra. In the meantime, I wonder if Ross McGregor, if he can catch up as well, and Max Tad also looking as though he's gaining a bit of ground on Scott Mitchell after the contact earlier in the race that saw him hung out to dry, unfortunately.
Well, Scott Mitchell, his last lap was a 1:25.1. So a complete departure from what we saw, running in the low 123s. And I'm sure that Max Tad will oblige with the front headlights on that BMW. I think I just saw a glimpse of that in the corner of my eye. And I'm sure there's a cheeky wry smile on his face behind the steering wheel at the moment saying, yep, the headlight show is back in full prominence. But Jack Nicholls extends a lead to now a whopping 2.8 seconds.
Wondering if Davis has had a mistake because Keller's caught right up to him and bringing Bell and McGlade with him as well. So I'm wondering if there's either been a mistake going into one of the corners, a lock brake or something, or if he's running the hard tyre, if he's trying to get that out of the way early because his pace has fallen off considerably as we run on board with Mike Bell coming out the hairpin to complete lap 9 and run on to lap 10. Now, if Kell has the pace, can he attack Davis going into Clairvaux? And see if he can get a clean pass, or at least a touring car classic pass coming through. Davis defends. Nice bit of curb as they come through the curbing there, on their way through Hawthorns and up to the chicane. And Davis, yeah, he's definitely lost ground a lot because Nicholls is up to a 3-second lead now as the trainer cars all the way down to Max Tad in 8th place is chasing Toby Davis, a 6-train car. 6-car train, even put the teeth in gear again as they go into Tower Bends. And see, while this is all happening, they're all scrabbling with each other. Bell's pushing Kell again to see if he can get past, and at the same time it's allowing McGlade to close up. McGregor's playing a wonderful watching game in the background as McGlade again pushing Bell as they go through the Jim Clark S's. Sonny in, he's right with them. So it's Barcroft, sorry, as they're coming to Sonny in now. Slight bit of touch there, but all of them are stuck together. The slightest mistake here, and we're going to see exactly the same thing as happened to Scott Mitchell and Max Tad. Someone's going to get hung out to dry, and places are going to be gained aplenty. As they wander their way into the complex. Again, that lead from Jack Nicholls is just brilliant. 2.6 now, as there we go. So Davis is defending on the inside of the hairpin. Takes a late break, but he's gone wide. Bell goes past.
Looks like, Kell and McGlade look to have got past. Yep. Look, Ross McGregor's even, look at him, he's got up into 5th place now. So Kell, looks like McGlade has got ahead of McGregor. So Ross McGregor is the R&Co Meat and a Sancho SimSport sandwich. And that's 3 focuses there. Just behind is Toby Davis. Scott Mitchell has come back into this. Now, obviously with what we saw with Toby Davis, now, if he was trying to take a quick cut back in, take the sweeping line through into the hairpin, that's what's compromising, because I saw that he got sort of in some ways shoved forward slightly through the amount of cars that were closing on his 6, as now Ross McGregor really started, as Davis runs wide. Now I'm wondering if the tyres have gone off, because we're on lap number 11 out of 15. If Toby Davis is starting to struggle with tyres, if he's pushed really hard to keep that lead ahead of Jack Nicholls, who now has 3.3 seconds over Mike Bell at the moment. I think that's where the struggles have been, because as soon as you put the option tyre on, if you rag them too hard in the early stages, they are going to fall off a proverbial cliff like a pebble being thrown in a pond.
If you think about it, Nicholls was pushing Davis all early on in the race. It took him up to around about the first 5 or 6 laps before Nicholls was able to make that move and get past. And then Davis's pace has fallen off since he's lost the lead. He fell back into the clutches of this chasing pack here, led by Mike Bell originally and Dan Kell. And he's fallen back even further now. So he's running down in 8th place behind Max Tad. He's really lost out, but he gains in race 2 and 3. If he's running the hard tyre now, he doesn't have this pain to suffer, whereas others do when it comes to the other 2 races of the evening.
So lap 12 out of 15. Ross McGregor now up into 4th position, having started down just outside of the top 5, and is putting on a really good show in the brightly coloured R&Co Motorsport Ford Focus. Max Tad now has got past Scott Mitchell for 6th position, and the headlights are a bit dim this time, it looks like. So I think I'm wondering whether someone is sort of gone, they can't keep on taking the mickey out of me from the headlights being. But Scott Mitchell's right on his back bumper. Now, that is absolutely brilliant work from Scott Mitchell. He started to come back as, Max Tan, I think, lost a little bit of the back end there in the number 35 SRR Motorsport BMW 125i going through one of the fast parts of the circuit here at Croft. So Scott Mitchell looks to be coming alive, but Jack Nichols doing a sterling job at the front of the field. He's going to start now what is lap number 13 out of 15. So 3 to go here at race 1. And just the minute that he got that opportunity to get past Toby Davis, he thought, right, if I get him, I've got that chance of just pulling away, and it's going to be like it's absolutely nothing, and I'm going to enjoy every single second of this.
I'll tell you what, after the races he had at Snetterton, like we say, with the first 2 races where he rolled and then drove back further up the field for race 3, impressive stuff from Nichols so far. As we look at Ben Willis in the Subaru, chasing down Scott Sovic, who currently holds the vital 10th position. Rear-wheel drive versus front-wheel drive, so in theory Willis should have the advantage here through some of the corners as we make our way through Tower Bend, and he closes on the Astra slightly. However, it looks as though Willis may be running the hard tyre as well, the same as Davis. So again, the rear-wheel drive and how it's making the tyre wear last, as we've seen before. The Subarus have normally been pretty good on their tyres and carrying the weight, but the minute Willis seems to be in the better position slightly as he chases down Sovic for 10th place.
I think in some respects a good amount of damage limitation has been exercised by the championship leader coming into this round, Chris Butcher, who's currently P12, having started down in 22nd position, as Lewis McGlade now trying to force the issue with Mike Bell for 2nd position. Ross McGregor not too far behind, yellow in sector 2, as we now go on to lap number 14 out of 15. So 2 to go here at Croft for the first race of round 7 of the season, as Lewis McGlade nearly has a little bit of a drama, possibly some snap-on understeer where the car was careering a little bit to the left-hand side. But with the front-wheel drive, you have to compensate with torque steer and also the front end not biting when it wants to, as we're going to have a little bit of a replay here. This is Sylvain Vessier locking up and just literally cuts the corner, and he's
become stuck.
That is one of the that's one of the bollards at the bottom of that part of the track. So he literally tried to recover, as now Lewis McGlade really hustling Mike Bell. But look at Ross McGregor. It's like saying, hi guys, 2's company, 3's a crowd, as Lewis McGlade nearly goes wide, nearly opens the door there for Ross McGregor to take 3rd place. Great scrap here as we head into the dying stages of race 1 out of 3 this evening for round 7 of the season. A little bit of a love tap there on Bell, on the back bumper of Bell, and another one going through into the complex from Lewis McGlade. And you can just sense that Lewis McGlade is trying to do the old rubbing the rear bumper and unsettling the back end of the car in front, just to allow that opportunity of getting past as they now head down towards Clervaux. But still, yellow in sector 2 once again, as through into Clervaux they go. Bell keeps the inside through to Hawthorns. Another tap there from McGlade on the back bumper of Bell, who will be fighting like crazy to keep that steering under control. The amount of times that back end of that Astra has been unsettled.
It's impressive stuff. Further back, we can see Phil Morby's passed Toby Davis up into 8th place. Davis fallen down to 9th, and Ben Willis has got
contact!
big contact.
Ross McGregor capitalised, and that was McGlade hitting the back bumper of Mike Bell. Dan Kell now gets into the thick of things, as does Max Tad. And we're on to the final lap. There's Scott Sovic, who's now lost out to Ben Willis. Unfortunately, Sylvain Vessier on debut has now retired. So 21 drivers will look to be at the finish. Looks like Bradley Brockies will end up a lap down off of the leaders at the checkered flag. Here's a replay.
This will be interesting stuff. So this is McGlade on Bell, from the looks of it, as we're coming through into Tower.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
he's just lost it under braking, slight tap and sideways, then caught the Astra, which has allowed McGregor to come through on the inside, as well as Kell and Max Tad.
No, well,
So-
Max Tad didn't actually make it through because the good thing from Mike Bell's perspective is that he was able to capitalise. But Jack Nicholls wins race 1 here at Croft after a dramatic fight all the way from 2nd down to around about 7th position. Let's have a look at the replay here. Now, this is, you got Toby Davis just up ahead.
Toby Davis, Ben Willis, and Scott Sovic. So this will be the contact here.
Oh, so yeah, Ben Willis turns in. Scott Sovic's got nowhere to go, and whoops. But Jack Nicholls, that is the first win of Kings Racing this season, and he won by quite a considerable margin, ahead of debutant Ross McGregor in the R&Co Motorsport 888 Ford Focus. So Jack Nicholls just cruises across the line and takes the victory. Nicely done there. Whilst I think that was Bradley Brockies, he was passing the timing across the checkered flag. Ross McGregor was about 8 seconds or so off of that at the end of it all. But let's have a look at the results from race 1 of round 7 here at Croft this evening. So Jack Nicholls takes the victory here in the number 29 Kings Racing Mercedes. Ross McGregor in 2nd after that titanic tussle between the likes of Mike Bell, Dan Kell, Max Tad. So Bell took 3rd, Tad 4th, Kell in 5th, Lewis McGlade in 6th place. Scott Mitchell managing to stay within the top 10, but no podium with his teammates in the form of Jack Nicholls. So Mitchell takes 7th, Morby in 8th. Toby Davis, who was leading before dramas hit, the number 34, rounded out the top 9 with Ben Willis completing the top 10 positions. Then we go to 11th to 20th, and Scott Sovic and Chris Butcher rounded out the top 12 positions. So great recovery drive there from Chris Butcher to get himself some points in this, and he finishes ahead of Matt Webb in the 444. Daniel Slattery in the 24 in 14th, ahead of Aidan Millward in the option 13 Simsport 67. Ed Straw making his debut for the now 3-man crew for Kings Racing in the number 17, ahead of Sandro Ballesteros, Jean-Michel Loriot, Daniel Hyde, Max Spooner running at the top 20, with Bradley Brockies being the last of the 21 classified finishers, with unfortunately retirements from both Sylvain Vessier and Graham Slattery. So it looks like the next warm-up is currently underway ahead of race number 2 here at Croft for continuing coverage of the Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship here in 2020. We'll be back in just a couple of moments' time. welcome back ahead of race 2 out of 3. And Phil, great to see Jack Nicholls get that monkey off of his back with that race win in what was an interesting encounter, wasn't it? Don't know if we've got a problem with Phil at the moment, unless he's forgot to press his button again. Yeah, take 2.
That's it, take 2. Now, what I started saying was Jack Nicholls ran almost the perfect race there. He hounded Toby Davis, who had a great start off the line and was able to hold a small lead, but he soon figured out where he was faster and was able to, have better pace through various different parts of the track, but also able to put the medium tyre to better use than Davis on the hard tyre. So from that, when he made his move, it's not surprising he was able to build that gap up and make a headway out in the front of the race itself. But the other thing that helped him as well was the fighting right behind. As soon as Davis fell down into that pack of Lewis McGlade, Dan Kell, Mike Bell, Max Tad, Ross McGregor, all of those fighting with each other as they were, and as we saw several times, including Scott Mitchell as well, as soon as someone's hung out to dry, they fall back. So it's not surprising. We had a lot of shuffling there, and that was able to help Nicholls build his lead to the gap that he had by the end of the race, as well as the last lap contact we had. Everyone just went for it to see what they could do and what they could get away with. I think it was great to see, but it seems a bit heated. So I think race 2 there may be a little bit more of an interesting outcome, I think, from the looks of how warm-up's going.
Yeah, very true there. Very true indeed. And we'll just see how things proceed in race 2 here at Croft. Looks like the warm-up's well underway, but some very good, strong performances. I think I have to give Ed Straw a bit of a shout out here, because to be, to qualify in, the fourth quarter of the top 20, but still to finish around about 15th position was pretty good. And I'm sure that both Scott Mitchell and also Jack Nicholls have been helping Ed, trying to get up to speed pretty quickly in a machine that they've been piloting for the last six rounds, 18 races up until this point. And so they've had a lot of experience with the car, and they've been able to help Ed get a baseline setup, which he'll be able to sort of work with over the course of the coming rounds.
And it's always good, as you say, when you've got experience with the car already. When a new driver comes on board, a third entry in this case for Kings Racing, which is great to see more Mercedes on the grid. But at the same time, giving Ed Straw that experience that they've already had. They've been through the rough and tumble of the previous races, the previous rounds in the season, so they've learned the hard way, learned the easy way with what works with the car, what doesn't work with the car. Great qualifying performance for his debut. He definitely held his own during the race as well. When we had the mix-up mid-pack, he wasn't afraid to get his elbows out and make his way back through while others were making mistakes around him. So it'd be good to see how he goes in race 2.
Okay, let's have a look at the grid for race 2 here at Croft. So Jack Nicholls, race 1 winner, will start on pole position, and he'll have Ross McGregor, who finished in second. So these are the results from race number 1. Ross McGregor will be on the front row. Mike Bell and Max Tad will be on row 2, ahead of Dan Kell and Lewis McGlade, with Scott Mitchell and Phil Morby rounding out the top 4 rows. Completing the top 10 will be Toby Davis in the 34 Astra and Ben Willis in the 85 Subaru Levorg. Scott Sovic in the 55 Astra will have Smart Power Racing teammate 65 Chris Butcher alongside on the outside of row number 6, with Matt Webb and Daniel Slattery on row 7. Aidan Millward and Ed Straw will round out the top 16 positions. Sandro Ballesteros will be in 17th, ahead of Jean-Michel Loriot, who will be ahead of teammate from Cadan Casual Apex, Daniel Hyde, with E-Team Brits team manager Max Spooner in the 63, rounding out the top 20 positions. And rounding out the 23 strong will be Bradley Brockies, who finished a lap off of the leaders. Now that's Sylvain Vessier going wide on the formation lap. In the number 129 Subaru Levorg from E-Team Brit 2, with Graham Slattery, who had that massive tyre stack rollover. He will start from 23rd. But as they say, Phil, last but by certainly no means least.
No, Graham's gathering experience as he's going. He did really well at Snetterton in the first 2 races. He took race finishes and was very unlucky in race 3. He's had, hopefully, his bad luck already today here at Croft. So, as I say, the only way is up when you start from this position on the grid, and we'll have to see how he progresses through the race.
Did you just put a song lyric reference in there?
I did. Are you impressed?
Brilliant.
Excellent.
Like it. Well done, Mr. Kinch.
Thank you.
Chapeau, monsieur.
Thank you.
As soon as you said that, the music started blaring in the back of my head.
Brilliant.
I was like, that's what I did not need before a race. But they are lining up into formation as we await for the second race here at Croft. 15 laps to go here at this fantastic 2.1 mile circuit. Nichols on pole, McGregor alongside. Who's going to get the run down to Clairvaux in race number 2? We're seconds away from finding out, as looks like Loriot is in the pits apparently. So starting from the end of pit lane. So once the whole field goes past, he will be released, as we are lights out and off and racing. As now we've just had, it looks like for some reason, now someone's gone off very, very wide there. That is one of the Sancho Simsport cars as they filter their way through. Nichols has lost down and dropped down to third. Scott Mitchell trying to go for fourth over around the outside of Phil Morby as Ross McGregor gets swamped and Nichols goes up the inside of all of them. As we've had a message from the race as McGregor runs wide coming out of the chicane there, but Nichols again jumps to the front, and now we've got Scott Mitchell trying to go around the outside of Ross McGregor, going through into the next corner. McGregor to the inside, Morby just behind. Everyone is absolutely bunched together as the race says, come on, Ed and Scott. Ed Straw already up from 16th to 13th position in the number 17 Mercedes, as Scott Mitchell looking to try and keep ahead of Ross McGregor as he kept the place. They're still side by side. Mitchell's got the lead on McGregor going around the outside of the Ford Focus as Morby looking to try and get an opportunity here. But Scott Mitchell on the very next corner, if it is a left-hander, he has got the inside line. Scott Mitchell gets a little tag on the right-hand side from Ross McGregor, but heading into the complex. Oh my goodness me, great work there by Scott Mitchell and also Ross McGregor. That was great, proper touring car racing action.
Great stuff, side by side as they were going through the back end of the circuit. And it's also good to see Phil Morby. He's made a great start up from up into fourth place. As we see Ed Straw in 14th, chasing down to see if he can get past the E-Team Brit 2 Subaru. If Straw can make some progress in this race as well. Again, it's experience gained, as it looks as though someone's gone extremely wide and clipped the markers going into Clairvaux.
Yes.
McGregor, meanwhile, is now trying to keep with Mitchell. As up front, Jack Nichols is just building the lead again. He's just doing what he did last time. It's the best way to do it. Build the gap whilst the others squabble. But it's great to see Phil Morby inside the top 5 and pushing hard in the Subaru.
Well, he has been pushing hard earlier on this season, and he didn't have the run of luck as round towards the outside of Max Tad goes Ben Willis, but Ben Willis now has Scott Sovic for company on his inside. Sylvain Vessier has absolutely launched that Subaru Levorg up the order. He started all the way down as Bobby Trundley from Team Brit says, come on boys, come on the E-Team Brit boys. Well, Sylvain Vessier is 13th. He's trying to battle with Scott Sovic for 12th. And now he's got Ed Straw from the race on his back bumper. Ed Straw, one of the, he's part of the editorial team at the race, particularly with their Formula One coverage, which also Scott Mitchell just so happens to be a part of. Of course, there is the Italian Grand Prix this weekend at Monza. Yellow in sector 3, but you can just see, oh my goodness, Sylvain Vessier trying to go around the outside of Ben Willis through the hairpin there, gets a good run in the Subaru. But I must be honest here, Ed Straw is just really, really impressing me because, look, he's keeping with them. He's not slouching by any stretch of the imagination. Ed Straw has really made a nice little additional dynamic to King's Racing here in VMO.
He's doing really well. It's great to see. Elbows out, even though he's slightly wide through Hawthorns. He'll correct that as he comes through the chicane. He is in the mix and showing he's here to not just to have some fun, but also to race hard with the rest of them as well.
Yeah, but you know what's going to happen now? Look at the 3 leaders. Make that 4-5 cars. As Jack Nichols just did a 123.4. Scott Mitchell absolutely hustling his Mercedes, a 122.647. Phil Morby, in the meantime, in the Morby Motorsport. Oh, Nichols gets
wide,
charged up. He goes wide. Up the inside goes Mitchell. And here comes Ross McGregor, fancying his chances on the number 29 of Jack Nichols from King's Racing. But then Phil Morby in the 14th. Chris Butcher up to 5th place. Then you look at the top 10 as again Nichols runs wide. but at least this particular time going through into the hairpin, he's got the inside runners. Phil Morby trying to launch it up the inside of Ross McGregor through hairpin, but can't get past the forward focus as now McGregor puts the power down. Coming out of the final corner, down towards Clairvaux. Nichols will have the inside run. Butch, if he gets a sniff, will go up the inside of McGregor at a moment's notice, but manages to keep it planted around the outside of Clairvaux on Phil Morby, through into Hawthorns. Now this is what we wanted, as now Scott Mitchell is the one putting on the pace, and now he's leading by 1.6 seconds on lap 4 out of 50.
Again, the roles swap as soon as the lead changes. If you can make a break, it is the squabbling pack behind as Ross McGregor pushes Jack Nichols hard going through Tower Bend. You've got Chris Butcher. He's made his way up from mid-pack in race 1 and made a really good progress here in race 2. And you can see Max Tad is almost the cork in the bottle from 9th place down. Lewis McGlade, Scott Sovic, Ben Willis, Vessier and Ed Straw and Aidan Millward. And you can even put Slattery in there as well, so that all, again, you've got 2 packs of racing for the various positions. The top 2nd through to 7th running together. So sorry, 2nd through to 8th running together, and then Max Tad in 9th, bottling up the cars behind. In the meantime, Scott Mitchell, he's up to 2.5 seconds lead. He's doing what he should. He's taking the break and building the gap whilst he can.
So there has been a DNF. And it's Max Spooner of all people. I'm just messaging him now to find out what the heck has gone on with him in the 63. I'll find out very soon, I'm sure. Sorry, even I can't get my false teeth.
Yeah, you go, sure, false teeth.
But then you've got this really good battle now with McGlade and Scott Sovic. Now, this is the battle for 10th position. McGlade sends it up through Clairvaux, but Sovic still to the outside. Then you've got Ben Willis in 12th. Then you've got Sylvain Vessier from E-Team Brit 2 in the Subaru. He's done an absolutely brilliant job in race 2. But then look just behind, Ed Straw from King's Racing is going, right, you want some? I'm going to bring some as well with this Mercedes. And he's doing a fantastic job as Ed Straw.
Bobby Trundley says, Chris Butcher into Tower Bend.
I'm getting the message from Max Spooner as Bobby Trundley pipes up on YouTube, says, well, Max Spooner's obviously stopped for an ice cream.
You can do that? Is that allowed?
Max has just responded to me and said, got pushed into the bollards, loss of pace, punted off at the end of the lap just to rub salt in the wounds.
Ouch, yeah.
Right,
it's been a bit boisterous down there.
As we've had some penalties issued, it looks like Matt Webb and Jean-Michel Loriot have had track limit penalties issued their way, which is an automatic drive-through. Scott Sovic close on the brakes and nearly went into the back of Lewis McGlade there. Going into the complex is now McGlade back up the inside of Sovic. Ben Willis now trying to get past the 85 Drag Racing Subaru Levorg. Sylvain Vessier still 13th as McGlade goes towards the left-hand side, heading into Clairvaux on Max Tad. The pair are nearly rubbing. They've both got their headlights ablaze as they both run wide. And this is going to allow possibly Scott Sovic to go up the inside of McGlade. Max Tad managed to keep the foot planted through the chicane. Through into Hawthorns. Now they're going to the chicane onto the back straightaway. McGlade still keeps hanging onto that 10th position, but now he's got a real good run as this time round the outside as McGregor has just been passed by Butcher up the inside for 3rd place. Contact between Tad and McGlade. They drop down the order, and now for a little bit of more trouble there, Max Tad gives Lewis McGlade a shove, which sends the focus one way, then the other.
There we go. In the meantime, you've got Jack Nichols. I'm mixing up the Mercedes. They're doing so well. Nichols holding off Butcher, who's past McGregor, with Mike Bell in close company. Phil Morby isn't far behind, so this isn't over by any chance. Nichols is building a tiny gap. You see that he's slowing them down as they defend, as Bell goes for the inside of McGregor at the hairpin and almost passes him. He's side by side as they come on the run down the start-finish straight. Butcher closing slightly on Nichols on the run down to Clairvaux. And as you can see once more, unless you fully commit to that passing move and the hairpin, you're not always going to get past. McGregor holding station as they come through Hawthorns and make their way through to the chicane. So this will be the contact between Lewis McGlade and Max Tad, and this looks as though this has started off something that continued for several corners. Yeah, slight contact coming into Tower Bend.
Yeah.
And then from there, continuous contact, so the others feed through. They're still pushing each other, headlights ablaze.
Well, the thing is that Lewis McGlade is trying to turn right all the time, and Max Tad has just kept stuck to his inside like glue, and then just fires him off a little bit there, if I'm honest with you.
I feel there's some retribution coming there, as it looks as though, Chris Butcher has passed Jack Nicholls for second place.
Well, Jack leads. Yeah, Jack Nicholls gets a little touch there from Ross McGregor, but the biggest thing here is that Chris Butcher got the option tyre out of the way in race 1. Jack Nicholls is currently on it, and that's why he's starting to drop. And we're only halfway through the race now. And I'm just having a look at the rest of the drivers that are in this train. Ross McGregor is currently on the option tyre. Seems to be looking after them a little bit better than Jack Nicholls, who is now behind Mike Bell. Mike Bell at the moment is also on the option tyres, as is Smile Power Racing teammate Scott Sovic, who is just behind Toby Davis. Has shot up come back a little bit now, up into 8th position, as we have another DNF in the form of Max Tad. Well, Max Tad is now. Here is what's happened. You can see that both of them. Now look, he's
turned into Lewis McGlade
and kept.
Yeah.
That is quite clearly definitive steering input. Definitive steering input.
And then he's continued that, which is why Lewis is trying to get back on track, and Max is still. No, I'm afraid that's not fair, unfortunately. That's going to cause some issues later. I think.
And also, Max Tad is DNF'd.
Right.
So
it's a bit unfortunate, as it was some good racing between the pair of them, but it does seem as though it's escalated. Unfortunately, his contact's been made.
Yeah, very much the case. S Clark 87 says, "What sim is this? It's really good. R Factor 2." Right. So I mean, effectively, that is something that's really going to be looked into. I think post evening, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
So.
So we've got Ed Straw up into 11th, and he's being chased by Aidan Millward in the BMW 125 IM Sport. Again, Straw up to 11th. He finished 15th in race 1, so he's progressed up the field, and he's holding his own once more, taking a defensive line, coming through the complex, staying wide. Yeah, he's taking the standard racing line, slightly wide at the apex and coming out the hairpin, so he's doing a good job to try and hold off Millward.
Yeah, well, I mean, think of it this way. He's on the verge of, touch wood, in his second race of securing points for King's Racing, and that's not bad. Actually, not bad going at all.
No.
So, Ross McGregor trying to close on Mike Bell in 3rd place. Looks to go towards the outside. This Focus looks really, really well purchased, especially when he tries to do the cutback move. Yellow in sector 2. We go on board with Ross McGregor on the front bumper of the R&Co Motorsport Ford Focus, the 888. It's a very iconic number when 888 was running in touring cars, and also V8 supercars, let's not forget.
Yep.
So, lock up there from Mike Bell. Ross McGregor closing very, very quickly indeed. But you can just see how close it is now. If I'm honest here, one of the closest battles that we're seeing, apart from Ross McGregor and Mike Bell at the moment for 3rd place, Jack Nicholls is about 4/10 ahead of Phil Morby, and then also you got Dan Kell in that mix. That's a 3-way scrap for 5th, and then you've got the battle between Ed Straw and Aidan Millward. So there's battles all up and down the order. Matt Webb has also just retired, so whether he's had damage, I'm not too sure. So that's 3 retirements, down to 20 cars we go, with the last of them being Jean-Michel Loriot in the Cadan Casual Apex MG. 2 laps off of the leaders is the number 88 at the moment.
Now, Morby did close up coming through Clervaux to try and see if he could get past Nicholls for 5th. He wasn't able to, but Nicholls is holding on better than Davis was able to in race 1. He's making the tyres work a little bit better and last a little bit longer as they come through Tower Bend. He's still got Morby and Kell closing him down, but he's managing to hold positions by now. Davis, and I think with obviously some contact involved in race 1, Davis had lost a few more positions, so Nicholls running in 5th place is doing really well, as we see Lewis McGlade here in 13th on the comeback to see if he can make some places back up before race 3 after this one. And he is chasing down Graham Slattery in the MG as they come through. They just come through Barcroft, coming into Sunny Out. And he's sizing up as it looks as though we've had some change here as Dan Kell has moved ahead of Phil Morby, and Nichols has managed to get himself about a half a second gap just in front of them both, as there is a slight touch coming out of the hairpin and more between Morby and Kell, and yeah, Nichols has managed to escape a little bit here. So Straw running in the third Kings Racing, again, he's just doing so well.
Yeah, looks like Sylvain Vessier in the meantime has actually dropped down to 17th as Bill Morby trying to keep pace with Dan Kell in the battle for 6th position, but Jack Nichols looks to be getting away on the on the circuit at the moment, and he's about 6 or 7 tenths ahead, 8 tenths ahead of this this battling duo just behind, who are battling over what is 6th position on the road, as Phil Morby really closes up and locks up, and then he puts a pair of rubber 11s on the circuit there, trying to lock up and stop that Subaru Levorg. Now onto lap number 11 out of 15, but Scott Mitchell is on course to try and get away from Chris Butcher. The lead between Mitchell and Butcher at the moment is about 3.4 seconds, as again it looks like Kell and Morby pushing these cars like crazy, and that's why we're seeing so many lockups into heavy braking zones here at Croft, Phil.
It is, exactly. They're pushing as hard as they can with what tyre wear they have. Again, the strategy playing its way with the guys choosing either the medium or the hard option tyres to run in different races. And as we can see, where are we? Sorry. Kell has caught up with Nichols, tries around the outside, taking the grass outside of the hairpin. Nichols is holding him off on the run down the start-finish straight. It's not always something that works out, but he's managed to bully his way to the side. If he can stay on the right-hand side, and he has done, and Nichols drops down to 6th, where there's more contact, and Nichols fights back, coming through Hawthorns, as does Phil Morby. 3 wide, we've got the chicane coming up. This is going to be impressive stuff, and we've all managed to make it through in one go. Nichols goes wide on the outside of the chicane, almost hits the rallycross track, and stays ahead of Kell on the run down to Tower.
And he does the Johan Kristoffersson, like in Finland quite
impressive
recently for World X. But it was in a Mercedes.
Oh, I'm sure they could go rallycross if they wanted to.
Yeah, as long as you put a central differential on there, put power to the rear wheels, give them a 6-speed. Sequential gearbox, which will rip their arms out of their sockets, they'll be absolutely fine.
Oh, they'll be fine. As we see Dan Kell go for the inside at sunny in and sunny out. Unfortunately, he's hung Nichols on the outside to dry, so Morby now lining himself up to see if he can pass the Kings Racing Mercedes. But again, Nichols has done well. He's now still inside the top 6. He's doing well to hold on, considering now we've got 2 to 3 laps of the race left to go, and he's making those tyres last, as now he needs to defend from Phil Morby. And again, the complexion of the race compared to what you'd normally expect, you've got the front wheel drives dominating the top 6 places. Phil Morby's the top rear wheel drive runner, as he now looks at the inside, doesn't make it stick, a very late move, and then calls him to go wide through Clairvaux and around Hawthorns as well. And it's here where Nichols seems to be the better driver, because he's able to get the car and the power down through the chicane and on the run to Tower Bend. Lovely view from on board with Mike Bell, as Ross McGregor pushes the Small Power Astra for 3rd place to see if he can get himself another podium. In the meantime, it looks as though, Nichols is holding off Morby through Tower Bend, as the Subaru driver tries to see if he can take that position away from the Kings Racing driver.
Well, I'm just looking at the amount of drivers that have gone with options for the next race. Bradley Brocky, Sylvain Vessier, Scott Mitchell, Ed Straw, Daniel Hyde, Matt Webb, Phil Morby. So 7 drivers out of the field, 10 in total for this one. So some of the drivers just getting the bad egg, if you will, out of having the option tyres on, out of the way. But McGregor still trying to press Mike Bell for 3rd position. And Bell's done a really good job so far, as the leaders now go on to the penultimate lap. Lap number 14 out of 15, as Jack Nichols trying to close up once again, this time on Phil Morby, who was the leading rear-wheel drive car in this race so far, rounding out the top 6 positions, as they now head down to Clairvaux. Not too far behind is Scott Sovic in the 65, not in the 65, the 55, get my numbers around the right way this time. That's the thing, when you got a 5, a 65 and a 55, it's sort of like thinking, if someone put 555 in there, you would definitely come a cropper on that one.
Oh yes, definitely.
So great battle here, continuing onwards between Mike Bell in the 5 and the 888 Focus, R&Co Motorsports, Ross McGregor from Scotland. Yeah, this is getting very, very close towards the end of the race, because we'll be on to the last lap very, very shortly. But Scott Mitchell, I've just noticed, is lapping slower than Chris Butcher.
Butcher is closing him right down. The gaps to just around about a second, just under a second. Mitchell's lost nearly a second and a half on this lap alone. So Butcher potentially going for the lead on this as they close up in the hairpin on the inset screen. Yeah, this is going to be a cracker to see if Mitchell can hold him off for the final lap of the race, or if Butcher can try and make a pass happen here.
Well, considering the fact that when the ballast changes, it changes the results of race 1. So Jack Nicholls was on 60 kilos of ballast before we'd even gone green. And so because Chris Butcher got himself into the top 12, he didn't get any success ballast. That's why he's on the pace. That's why we now see exactly how quick he is. And last time around, he was exactly 0.7 of a second quicker than Scott Mitchell. So Mitchell now just has a handful of corners to go to try and hold on, because if this happens, I know that for a fact there's going to be celebrations at the race as Bell back up the inside of McGregor to take P3 back into his possession as they now head down towards the latter few corners here, and you can just see how much Chris Butcher wants this win.
He's got the inside of Sunny out.
Yeah, he went up the inside as Scott Mitchell drifted wide there. Slight mistake, but he's now got the opportunity to get back on the inside. This time he won't do it, as they'll come into the complex, but then they've got the hairpin. If Scott Mitchell times this right and makes sure that he gets the opportunity to go up the inside of Chris Butcher, depending on how quickly Butcher takes the inside line, which he does, he'll come out of the final corner, and Chris Butcher, on the last lap with just a couple of corners to go, takes the win here at race 2 at Croft. What a drive still, nevertheless. Scott Mitchell in 2 race evening meetings has taken a second podium.
Brilliant stuff. Yeah.
Mike Bell rounds out the top 3. Ross McGregor, another top 5 finish, this time finishing in 4th. Dan Kell will round out the top 5 positions as Lewis McGlade will cross the line in 11th ahead of Aidan Millward. Yeah, Phil Morby takes 6th. Scott Sovic 7th. Jack Nicholls will round out the top 8 positions. And the race says, "We still love you, Scott. Well done." That's what you need. You need support in any sort of instance. You know, he was leading the way, got past Jack Nicholls, tried to streak away from and Ed as well. So looks like the love for Jack isn't there at the moment. Bless him. Chris Butcher on the last lap with just a couple of corners to go after Scott Mitchell ran wide, took the victory by about 0.8 of a second. And Jack as well. There we go. Well timed, guys. Brilliant job. Thank you very much for that.
They're listening.
Well, let's have a look at the results from race 2 out of 3. Chris Butcher, after 15 laps, would win the race ahead of Kings Racing, Scott Mitchell and the 22 Mercedes. The number 5 Astra of Smile Power Racing's Mike Belt rounded out the top 3, ahead of the R&Co Motorsport Ford Focus and the 888 of Ross McGregor. Dan Kell from the leading Sancho Simsport car in the 89 was 5th, ahead of Morby Motorsports' Phil Morby in the number 14 Subaru. Scott Sovic, another top 10 finish for the 55, with Jack Nicholls from Kings Racing rounding out the top 8 positions, with Toby Davis in 9th in the number 34 Astra and the 85 Subaru of Ben Willis rounding out the top 10. Lewis McGlade from Sancho Simsport, after the drama with him and Max Stad, which I'm sure will have some sort of repercussions afterwards, just with the evidence that we did see on screen. That is down to race stewards and race control to decide on what happens there. Lewis McGlade takes 11th ahead of Aidan Millward. Congratulations, Ed Straw, in his second ever race here in VMO. He takes 3 points for rounding out the top 13 ahead of Graham Slattery, who finished in 14th. And congratulations once again to Sandro Ballesteros from E-Team Brit for taking another points finish this season, being the last of the point scorers in race 2 here at round 7. Daniel Hyde in 16th, Daniel Slattery in 17th ahead of Sylvain Vessier, Bradley Brockies and Jean-Michel Loriot rounding out the top 20. And Max Tad, a DNF from him. We also had we've had a message from Craig Woolard on YouTube. That Ed Straw fellow looks promising. Well, I think because King's Racing will probably say you ain't seen nothing yet.
Yes.
and obviously Max Spooner got the message directly from him. That's the wonders about having these Discord servers, that you can actually contact people directly. And if they go, yeah, I had salt rubbed into the wounds. Well, Max, all the very best of luck for race number 3. So that is it. We've got one more race to go. It's been brilliant. 2 different winners, 2 different races. It was nearly a double up for King's Racing here at Croft, as we have just one more race to go to conclude the 7th round out of 10, the 2020 Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship. Myself and Phil will be back in just a couple of moments' time.
the breaking of boundaries and the teamwork that make it so engaging. And for the drivers at Team Brit, racing is genuinely life-changing. Most of them are injured military veterans who are using it as a tool for rehabilitation and recovery. The team uses specially adapted hand controls to accommodate various disabilities. Out on track, the drivers can then push themselves physically while recovering mentally. It's already come a long way and is en route to climb the racing ranks even further, hoping to normalise disability in motorsport. This is the story of Team Brit. After finishing its first full season racing VW Fun Cup cars, the team is now putting the hours in during the off-season. It's hosting one of its rookie days, a chance to introduce new disabled drivers to the sport and to give existing drivers more time behind the wheel. Ash Hall is one of the latest additions to the team.
Yeah, it's been hard and fast, and the learning curve's been pretty steep. It's a bit of a shock to the system, to say the least, but it's well worth it.
He served in the Royal Engineers for a decade and was injured in Afghanistan in 2010, losing both his legs after stepping on an improvised explosive device.
And the last thing I remember was my head was clamped between the doc's legs, both arms out, and people trying to get IVs into my arms. And the last thing I remember was just this big ass needle come straight over my chest, right into my sternum, and then that was it. Like a switch, I was out. And nothing, absolutely nothing, till 9 days later when I'm halfway around the world in a hospital.
He's now competed for Team Brit, but he's been reminded that, in racing, you never really know what the next corner will bring.
It was a track day rather than a test session, so there were other cars on and drivers on there of all abilities. Going into Cersei's like that at Brands Hatch, it's going flat out. There's not a lot of room, not a lot of space to brake, and it was in the mid of a turn. Ended up losing the back end of it, and once it hits wet grass, and it's just straight off. You lose pretty much all control of it. You just got to hammer the brakes and hope you come to a stop, and I did, but it took hitting the wall to stop the car. That was a bit of a shock. That was upsetting as well. Like, obviously, the thing about endurance racing is you share the car. So if I go messing up the car, then not only does it affect me, but then it also affects the rest of my teammates. You know, everyone's travelled from all over the country to get to that one place, and when you go being a bit overzealous like that and messing it up for everyone, it's puts a downer on the team, but I mean, it's something we've got to get used to because we have got to work as a team.
Into the new year and a new car for the team, and with it, new challenges. Motorsport offers a unique opportunity for the team to race against other drivers on an equal playing field, and this is made possible by complex hand controls, which the team are setting up today.
Then we on to the hand control system, just calibrating the brake here and the throttle here. And we're now setting up the gear change, so it allow the driver to brake on this side and change down on this side, or accelerate on this side and change up on that side, or just to configure it for different levels of disability.
The step up from VW Fun Cup cars to GT machinery is a big one for the team, and that's one of the reasons why a former driver has returned to the squad. Martin Compton had been part of the original driver lineup when the team was formed in 2015, but has since taken time out to undergo further surgery after he sustained life-changing injuries when his patrol was ambushed in Afghanistan.
They detonated an IED, improvised explosive device, which blew the wagon in half and unfortunately killing the 3 guys in it. And at that point I obviously couldn't go anywhere, and they then shot rocket grenades at me, which blew the engine up and engulfed me in flames. And somehow I managed to get out of that, and getting into cover I was then shot twice in the leg as well. The hardest thing from being in hospital to then leaving was looking in the mirror, feeling the same person inside, but actually obviously looking completely different. And that was the hardest bit.
While over 500 hours of operations have healed Martin physically, it's been racing that has helped him to recover mentally.
Yeah, I got diagnosed with PTSD, and for me, racing's always given me that focus and the adrenaline and the teamwork that I was missing. People that know me obviously knew where I was in 2010, and to where I am now is completely different. So it is because of racing and the focus that I've got from it.
One of the things I never really expected or even thought about was the psychological benefits of motorsport and the impact that it has. The fact that the benefits of motorsport are greater on people with mental health issues than the guys with the physical injuries. You know, people with depression or PTSD and stuff. Is that, you know, you're down, and all you spend most of your day thinking about negative stuff. You're down, you can't seem to snap out of it. But if we say we got a race on Saturday, and it's Monday, and now you're thinking, oh, I've got a race on Saturday. It's like a kid waiting for Christmas.
For Warren McKinley in particular, racing has had a substantial impact on his mental health. He had a motorbike accident while serving as a recovery mechanic in 2005, leaving him with a traumatic brain injury. He was later diagnosed with Cotard syndrome, also known as walking corpse syndrome, a rare condition which caused Warren to believe that he was dead.
It's hard to describe it because when I talk about Cotard syndrome, it just brings back the feelings I had when I was suffering from it, and it's just a feeling of nothing, of just like emptiness. The thing with having a head injury, a brain injury, is you kind of never recover from it. The best way that someone explained it to me is just imagine that you go to work and you use the same road every day. You leave at the same time every day, and you get there at the same time every day. And then one day you leave and you get to a bridge and the bridge is blown up. It's never going to be replaced. You still got to leave for work at the same time, and you still got to get there at the same time, but you've got to find a new route. And basically it's like you have to do twice as much work to get to do the same things.
Continue watching that video, which is available on the Team Brit VMO channel or YouTube channel. Still about 9 minutes of that video to watch. But reverse grid poll, number 8 was drawn out of the hat, and Jack Nicholls is on pole position. So could it be 2 for 2 for Kings Racing this evening here at Croft? And as you can see, we're about to get things underway for the formation lap. So let's have a look at our third and final grid here at Croft for round 7 of the VMO Touring Car UK Championship. Jack Nicholls and Scott Sovic will be on pole position. Phil Morby and Dan Kell will be on row number 2. Then you look at row number 3, it's the 888 of Ross McGregor and the number 5 of Mike Bell. Scott Mitchell in the 22 will round out the top 7 positions ahead of the number 65 of Chris Butcher, who will start in 8th position. Then it's the number 34 of Toby Davis and the 85 of Ben Willis. That rounds out the top 10. Lewis McGlade in the 78 and Aidan Millward in the 67 round at the top 6 rows. Then it is Ed Straw and Graham Slattery in the 17 and the 30 respectively. Sandro Ballesteros in the 19 from E-Team Brit will have Cadan Casual Apex's number 2 MG of Daniel Hyde alongside. Then it's the MG of Rage Racing's Daniel Slattery in the 24. The 129 Subaru Levorg GT of E-Team Brit 2's Sylvain Vestier. Bradley Brockies in the E-Team Brit BMW 105. And the number 88 of Jean-Michel Loriot from Cadan Casual Apex rounds out the top 20 with Max Spooner and Matt Webb rounding out the 11 rows. 22 competitors, 15 laps of this evening set to get underway very, very shortly before in 2 weeks' time we head north of the border to Knock Hill for the 15th of September. As we get towards the business end, we'll have Knock Hill on the 15th of September. The 29th of September we'll head to Silverstone International Circuit, and then to round things off in true touring car style, Brands Hatch Grand Prix on the 13th of October. So Phil, one of the best things that Jack Nicholls has really got going for him in this race, the option tyres.
Yes.
He doesn't need to run them now. He's got it out of the way. Whereas Scott Mitchell and Ed Straw are on the options this particular time around.
It's going to be difficult for both Mitchell and Straw. They'll obviously have to try and cope with what grip they can take from the start and see how they can manage the tyres. But for Nichols, he's going to have see how he can go against Phil Morby, see if that Subaru gets off the line well.
Yeah, I think also watch out for Sylvain Vessier down in 18th. He got up to 12th position early doors in race 2. And he is on the option tyre. So let's see if the Subaru Levorg treats them a little bit kinder here at Croft. We're ready to get things underway for the third and final time for round 7 this evening. We are off and racing for the final time, as it's a good getaway from Nichols, but that is Dan Kell that's got an absolute flyer in the 89 Sancho Simsport heading down to Clairvaux for the first time. There's a little bit of contact between Sovic and Nichols, so Kell gets the flyer as Scott Mitchell running wide through Hawthorne Bend, as now they go through the chicane for the first time. But again now, I'm just having a look at Dan Kell. He got the options out of the way in race 1, so he's on exactly the same compound as they filter their way down. They absolutely hurtle their way down. Look at that stream of colour going down towards Tower Bend as some of the drivers locking up really, really significantly going into there. But what a start there from Dan Kell.
It was brilliant. In fact, we've had some contact back on the run to the Jim Clark S's. Looks as though quite a few cars involved at the back end of the field. Meanwhile, Ross McGregor was one of the cars that had to go wide at the chicane at the start of the lap itself, so he's managed to maintain some position and stay with Toby Davis in 6th place. See if Davis, as he's now got the pain of the hard tyre out the way, see if he can make some positions up now that he's in a better tyre himself. In the meantime,
we go on board with Jack Nichols in the Mercedes A45, as he's really pressurising Dan Kell for the lead as they go across the line to complete lap number 1. There was a brief yellow sector there, yellow in sector 1. So it looks like there have been some dramas a bit further down the order as we come across the line. So,
in fact, it looks as though Ed Straw has come to a halt just on the run from Tower Bend to the Jim Clark S's. So hopefully he's able to get going again.
Yep, so Jack Nichols absolutely hustling his way through the chicane, gets the inside run. Now there is a car just up ahead. This is going to be very, very close indeed, because both drivers... Hang on a second. Did I just see a Chevrolet? That did not look... That's
safety car.
Safety car for the first time this season. Oh, I wondered why. And so we got a Chevrolet Corvette safety car. Okay, let's have a look at the replay. Now there's Ed Straw going through into Hawthorns. There's one of the E-Team Brit cars behind, I think, that's Sandro Ballesteros, and I think that's Paddy Brocky's.
Yeah, good move on the inside.
Getting through the chicane. Okay, so let's just keep with this for a moment. So Ed Straw, a little bit further back from the remainder of the field. Yes, hello, Mr. Safety Car, says Craig Woolard. Ed Straw goes into Tower, and that's Matt Webb on the outside of him. The pair have a little bit of a rub there.
This is where the contact starts in the background. Ben Willis involved.
Oh, so it was up ahead. There were like 4 cars involved, and that's why the safety car... Yeah, so Sylvain Vessier's in the pits too. So we've got a safety car out for the first time this season. Well, and that's why we've now got an additional lap added on to... Well, I think it's that early in the... It's a full restart. And that was 5 wide coming out of Tower Bend there, Phil. Nicely mentioned there by Craig Woolard. So we are going to have a full restart of the third and final race this evening, which effectively gives Jack Nichols another opportunity to actually get into Clairvaux in the lead. But Dan Kell has been the danger person as soon as he launched that Sancho Simsport Ford Focus off the line.
He did get a good start from that. And again, like I say, as mentioned, it gives Jack the chance to have a better start or try and improve his start if he can. Both Kell already he made a better start and was able to get off the line, as did Phil Morby as well. It was quite a hustled run down to Clairvaux on the original start itself. So lessons learned. Scott Sovic was well in the mix as well. It was great to see them all hustling as they went through Clairvaux and Hawthorne for the first time. So yeah, if anyone can get improved starts on this is the best chance to do it.
Yeah, very, very true. We're just waiting for everything to be reset on the server so we can get things underway for our third and final race here at Croft. And I think some of the biggest talking points, Kings Racing getting their first win, Chris Butcher getting a win after quite a long time, So for him, you know, having that great battle with Scott Mitchell in the dying stages of the race for race 2, and you know, I have to give Scott a lot of credit because he held his own for quite a long time. You know, had a big old gap, 3.5 seconds, but Chris Butcher, because he had no ballast, was just pushing and pushing, and he was hell bent on getting that race victory. And come hell or high water, Scott Mitchell was not able to stand his way. But Scott obviously, you know, was looking after the tyres. I think it was just a little bit of an unforced error, and it just caused him to go wide, and Chris went right up the inside, and there you go.
He was able to give him a go, though. It was a great performance by Scott to try and defend where he could and try and come back at Chris in the last few corners of the lap. And as we've seen, the complex and the hairpin is someone you can normally pass. But I think by that time, as you said, unfortunately, Scott's tyre wear had just given everything it could, and he had to settle for second place. An unfortunate situation, you know, it is awful when you know you've led the race for that long, you've been able to control the pace, and you are pipped to the post at the very last minute. But he's done a great, it's 2 podiums out of 2 races today. He can't be upset with that so far, and obviously if he can try and see if he can aim for a 3rd one, it's going to be difficult with a hard tyre, but we'll have to see what he can conjure up.
It's always a case of wait and see, as I think we're about to get things back underway very, very shortly to restart race 3. Apologies for the delay, but obviously it was under the guidance of the race director to make that judgment call. So it is never easy, especially when, you know, we saw that sort of like 5-car incident that really took a lot of people out. And I think it's now a case that everyone's got to sort of try and watch their P's and Q's this time around.
Definitely, yeah. They've had the chance. You know, last race of the evening, everyone goes hell for leather. See what they can do. See what performance they can pull out. And in this case, unfortunately, like you say, 5 wide into town was just one too many, and the race being stopped because of the incident we had further back as the field streamed through Sunny in and out.
Okay, well, we'll go through the grid very quickly because we've already gone through it once in its entirety. But it's Nichols and Sovic in the 29 and 55 on the front row, the 14 of Morby, and then the 89 of Kell. Then it's McGregor in the 888 and Bell in the number 5, Scott Mitchell in the 22, and Chris Butcher in the 65, rounding out the top 8. Then it's the 34 of Toby Davis, the 85 of Ben Willis completing the top 10. Then it's Lewis McGlade in the 78, Aidan Millward in the number 67. Then the number 17 of Ed Straw from King's Racing, the number 30 of Rage Racing's Graham Slattery, Sandro Ballesteros in the 19 from E-Team Brit, Cadan Casual Apex's Daniel Hyde in the number 2, rounding out the top 8 rows. Sylvain Vessier will complete the top 18 behind Daniel Slattery in the 24. Bradley Brockies from E-Team Brit in 19th, ahead of Jean-Michel Loriot with Max Spooner and Matt Webb. And the biggest notice of someone not being present is Max Tad. So the headlight show not here for race 3. But in many respects, we still will have 22 drivers racing around the 2.1 mile, 3.4 kilometre circuit here at Croft. And what we are going to do as such, and just see what happens. Really, I think it's going to be an absolute cracker to round off the end of the evening.
It is. We're looking forward to a great race here. Just noticing that the 2 remaining King's Racing Mercedes of Ed Straw and Scott Mitchell have elected to start from the pit lane, it looks as though, for this race. So missing off the warm-up lap. Hopefully that gives them a cleaner start to try and avoid some of the carnage in this second attempt at trying to start race 3.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fair enough. So we'll see what happens as the drivers now make their way onto the grid. So 20 drivers will filter in front of Scott Mitchell, who would have started in 7th, and Ed Straw from 13th position. So we will have 22 cars starting this race, but 2 from the pit lane. And this is going to change something a little bit differently. Now, look at it from this perspective, Phil. They're on option tyres, the pair of them.
Exactly. They've got to manage the tyre wear and see what they can get away with, but that early grip will give them an advantage as we're underway.
Right, we're off and racing, and again Dan Kell gets an absolute fly, gets past Scott Sovic and gets the run on Jack Nichols heading into turn 1. Phil Morby looks a bit more planted this time around as again we go into Clervaux, but Nichols keeps very, very close to the back bumper of Dan Kell as they go through Hawthorne Bend and then through into the chicane before we go into the back straightaway heading up towards Tower. So a good clean start already, and I'm just looking at the back. You know what's really funny though? Scott, we've got a yellow again in sector 1 very, very quickly on lap number 1 out of 15. But Scott Mitchell up to 20th. He's got teammate Ed Straw a little bit further behind. So Mitchell could start filtering his way through the field, but it just depends on how quickly he decides to light up those tyres and move forward. As now Mitchell up into 18th before we've even completed the first lap. Yellow again in Sector 1, but Nichols 0.4 of a second off of Dan Kell. As now they filter their way through into the far part of the circuit as they head towards Sunny in and Sunny out. And it's really funny because it sounds like an Americanized term. If you say sunny side in, sunny, well, it's sunny side out, doesn't it? It sounds like how do you want your eggs served in the morning?
I'm exactly with you and trying not to say that myself. I'll let you take that one.
No. I had to say it because it's race 3. So we're going to have the elbows out a little bit on the commentary, but not too much like we have had in previous rounds. But just look how close Jack Nichols is keeping with Dan Kell. Right, here's a replay. Turn around for Matt Webb as a result of Bradley Brocky's going up the inside, and then he's been clattered into.
Ouch.
That looks to be Jean-Michel Loriot, and straight to the tyre bollards has gone Matt Webb, and that front end of that Focus has meant an instant DNF. But Jack Nichols, look how close Nichols is. He's not Kell is now thinking, right, I got the jump on him. I've now got to stay ahead. And it's a completely different proposition. If you are the one that's being chased, the one behind doing the chasing is having to do less work.
Exactly. And Jack Nichols, we know he can do this. He did this in race 1 with Toby Davis. Slightly different situation where Davis was on the harder tyre, so grip wasn't on his side. This is on as even. Both on the medium tyre, both pushing hard. And I can see Jack doing exactly the same thing in the early stages as he did then. He sized up Davis where he was able to try and make a pass and worked out where the Mercedes was better than the Focus, or better than the Astra, in race 1 as he did there. This time he's got to do the same with Dan Kell and the Focus. Figure out where the Focus has its weaknesses and try and pounce with the Mercedes as he can. But as he's showing, he's not letting him get away. He's sticking right to the back of the Sancho Sim Sport Ford and showing exactly what he's worth. And they're both building a gap now, with Nichols just over a second ahead of Sovic and Morby. So yeah, he's definitely pushing to see if he can get a second race win today.
I've just seen some really funny stuff on social media, courtesy of the race's Glenn Freeman, that there was a pre-race distraction as they awaited the restart, as an argument has broken out over the radio between Jack and Ed about the Belgian Grand Prix driver races from this past weekend. It's great.
Are they focusing on the job at hand?
But that's the thing. I'm sure that I'm probably, depending on where Jack finishes this evening, I'm going to ask him. I'm going to say, how was the argument settled? But he's got a race. He's got a race to carry on with. But at the moment, Ed Straw now up into 19th. Scott Mitchell now one position away from hitting the top 15. Lap 3 of 15. Jack Nichols still quite heftily on the tail end of the. Well, it's sort of like the conductor tuxedo jacket, the long tails at the back of it. He's
the long
basically
tails.
stepping on them at the moment from a motorsport perspective. So Jack Nichols is looking very, very racy. And if I'm honest with you, look at the pace between the two of them. Dan Kell has just put in the fastest lap of the race last time around on lap 3, a 1:22.862. Jack Nichols was just over a 1/10 of a second behind. But he's not, I think the biggest thing is now is that these drivers are on exactly the same compound tyre. Gap now down to 5/10, but Nichols was closer. He was about 35 thousandths of a second off, 3/10 off on that particular lap. No, it wasn't, sorry. It was 1:22.693 for Dan Kell, a 1:22.728 for Jack Nichols. That is 35 thousandths of a second apart. Andy Tucker Racing says, hopefully for Max Spooner, the ice cream van doesn't stop by the track again. Good to see the Team Brit boys engaging with us as now we've got a good battle here between Ross McGregor and Scott Sovic. McGregor to the outside of the 55 there for third place. Oh, nicely done, but a little bit of nudging there. I think Scott Sovic tried to turn left and got caught out as Phil Morby in the Subaru Levorg, the fastest of the highest placed of the rear-wheel drive cars at the moment, has got Toby Davis, who's out for a bit of redemption. Chris Butcher up to 7th, Max Bell up to 8th, Lewis McGlade, Ben Willis rounds out the top 10, As Sylvain Vessier drops down to 14th from 12th. And look who's up to 12th now. Scott Mitchell is absolutely flying in the 22. He's just done a 1:24.723. So he's negotiating traffic. And one of the good things about the negotiating of traffic again is Jack Nicholls sets the timing screens purple, a 1:22.505 in the 29. It's got the gap down to about 0.3 of a second. Scott Mitchell has got the added benefit of being able to close on those behind, those in front. But look at the gap between him and Aidan Millward. The gap is about 6 seconds at the moment. There's still 10 laps of this race still to go. But Jack Nicholls is the one that is really pressurising Dan Kell to get a double victory this evening. As Toby Davis up the inside through on Phil Morby, gets through, manages to sort of do his touring car elbows out barge impersonation there. Manages to get past the Subaru for P5. Not too far behind, you've also got Chris Butcher in the 65 behind the number 14, Subaru Levorg, as now it is really heating up in this battle because Chris Butcher right on the back bumper of the Subaru. Not too far behind his teammate from Smile Power Racing, Mike Bell, and then Lewis McGlade and Ben Willis, and then Aidan Millward are closing in. And whilst this is happening, yes, John Stout, it is the one Jack Nicholls. It is the one and only Jack Nicholls that we're talking about here. We've been talking about him since about round 1 earlier on this year. As now, Jack Nicholls is closing. Let's see what the gap is between them in terms of pure race pace. So Nicholls was over 0.2 of a second quicker last time around. 1:22.883 from Dan Kell. Jack Nicholls lost that a little bit that time, 1:23.109. But we know that this Mercedes has a lot of pace. And he's coming through Hawthorne Bend as an absolutely obscene rate of knot. He literally straight lines the chicane up the run towards Tower Bend. He's closing on Dan Kell. You can just tell by the way that Jack Nicholls is a man on a mission this evening, isn't he?
He is. He's really pushing. He's had that first win. He's got the confidence. He's found the top step of the podium and managed to sit there and say, right, I've done it. Now I can go for more. And he's got this chance now. You know, reverse grid pole for race 3. Perfect opportunity. Dan Kell's got the start on him twice now, so Jack is definitely in the game on this one. If tyres can be managed, if he can keep the tyre weight and the pressure up on Kell can soak this up really well. We've seen him race well with others in earlier races previously in the season, but he hasn't had to race against Jack Nicholls before, and a Jack Nicholls that's got a win under his belt. So yeah, there is definitely all to play for here as Nicholls really pushes through the complex, trying the different lines through the complex and coming into the hairpin, and he's trying to see, like I say, he's going to be figuring out exactly where the Focus has a weakness. If he can pass him, where he can find a way past, and where he's losing out a bit of time, he can gain it back on further on. As we see further back, it looks as though Chris Butcher has passed Phil Morby for 6th position. And in which case also Lewis McGlade has passed Mike Bell for 8th position as well. So it looks as though Morby's hard tyres are starting to play up as well. We're coming to about halfway through the race, and we've seen the front wheel drive car suffer with that hard tyre from about 3/4 onwards. It may be the Subaru is already struggling considering he's got the swarming pack around him.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, John Stout actually found this stream via Twitter. So obviously the likes of Glenn Freeman, editor-in-chief of the race, Jack Nicholls, Scott Mitchell have all been sharing the YouTube stream all the way before we went racing. So lap 7 and 15. Nicholls still hustling Kell for the lead of the race at race 3 out of round 7 before we go to Knock Hill in 2 weeks' time. As just behind you can just see how quickly Lewis McGlade is on the back bumper of Phil Morby, and that is the battle for 7th. Oh, Morby locks up, McGlade up the inside, and it looks like maybe even Mike Bell might try and get through too. Not quite yet, but looks to be getting up the inside of the Subaru this time. Does he get the move done? Not quite yet. So again, you can just see how much now Phil Morby is struggling, and that Subaru is dropping like a stone.
He is, as Bell goes for the inside, a little bit of hip and check as they come through the hairpin. Now, if Mike Bell's got the grip over Phil Morby, then it just looks as though as he can keep the position ahead as they come across the start-finish line. Now, Morby's going to defend coming into Clervaux and see if he can hold on to the right-hander. And no, a slight bit of contact there, a bit of rubbing his racing as we love in touring cars. But yeah, Mike Bell's managed to get ahead of the Subaru, and that now means that whilst Morby's going to try and keep with him as close as he can, Ben Willis and also Aidan Millward will be closing up further behind, and it becomes a rear-wheel drive battle for the bottom end of the top 10.
Yeah, lap 8 out of 15 is now Morby goes defensive on Willis, who's going around the outside of the Subaru, and Ben Willis has just powered around the outside of Phil Morby. That's a great job, and now Aidan Millward is coming into the fray in the leading BMW in this grid this evening as we go on board with Aidan Millward on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. You can just see how hard Phil Morby is pushing. The right-hand side of that Subaru literally locked up like a gun through the last 2 to 3 corners. But he's trying to keep pace with Ben Willis, as it looks like Willis has been a bit more of a strategist in this race as we now come across the line to complete lap number 8. On to lap number 9 out of 15. Nichols still keeping a very, very good pace, and they are lapping within 10 thousandths of each other between first and second. So Dan Keller 1:23.098, Jack Nichols 1:23.108. So this battle isn't over yet.
No,
and
definitely not.
you can just see that Dan Keller is trying to pull away from Jack Nichols, who, in the other aspect, and I'm looking at the sector times. Okay, sector 1, last lap around, Kell was quickest. No, Nichols was quickest. Yeah, Nichols was quickest by 0.14 seconds, and then was quicker again. But then he lost all that time in sector 3. He was nearly 3 tenths down. Well, it was over two and a bit tenths on Kell that particular time around. As Ben Willis now being hounded by Phil Morby. So Willis went around the outside of Morby. Now he's the one that's being chased by the Subaru. And one of the good things is, in many respects, it could be very much a case of who's going to get the upper hand of the other in terms of the war of the Subarus.
It will be, yeah, whoever can get the top rear-wheel drive honours in race 3. And again, like I've said in the first 2 races, it's completely changed the complexion of what is normally expected at Croft. Normally, in the real world, you'll see the rear-wheel drive cars completely steam over. You'll maybe get 2 race wins to the rear-wheel drives and 1 to the front-wheel drives. The front-wheel drive guys here are just absolutely dominating proceedings, and the highest we've seen has been maybe 6th or 7th place for the rear-wheel drive cars. So it's great to see, though, everyone's so close, despite the tyre strategies, despite having to play the hard tyre in one of the races, everyone pushing so hard and trying to defend where they can, trying to use the grip where they can, make the tyre life work as possible. As we see once again, Jack is just completely, almost virtually tied to the back of Dan Kell's bumper. He's doing everything possible, and also to throw it into the mix, they're coming up to lap traffic as they come up to sunny in and sunny out. It looks as though they're coming up to, I believe it's Bradley Brockie's potentially, so they may start closing in towards him as Nichols is closer than ever. He's improved his time through the 3rd sector. That's where he's been the weakest so far. Sectors 1 and 2, he's owned them. He's now making it, just sticking sector 3 as they come to complete the end of the lap, and they're going to come up to lap Bradley Brockie's at the start of lap 11.
Yep, so still a lot of things still to go in the last few races, the last few laps of this race, as now we head down to complete what's going to be effectively they've completed lap 11 as Ben Willis coming out of the final corner through the hairpin. And so at the minute, Bradley Brockie's still is the 21st and last driver that is going to be across the line, and he's a lap down off the leaders. So 21 drivers still running. Matt Webb, after the very first lap, hitting the tyre stack after contact with Brockie's. No worries. We had a slight canine intrusion in the broadcast booth, unfortunately, but things are back to normal. I think Aidan Millward is an online race winner. I can't remember what race it was, but actually, yes, it was one of the actual events for the race itself. And John Stout now comments that saying Jack Nichols has obviously had too much lockdown practice. Well, he's not the only one, is he?
Well, I think everyone's had plenty of practice during lockdown.
Yes, exactly. So it's quite surprising that when you have a lot of time on your hands, at the end of the day, A lot of people have been practicing as we go on board on the Option 13 SimSport 67 BMW 125i of Aidan Millward, who is still trying to chase down 10th position, which is effectively 6 points on the board. And he's got Phil Morby just up ahead, as it looks like one of the E-Team Brit cars. I think that might be Sandro Ballesteros or Bradley Brockey's getting out of the way. So on to lap number 12 of 15. And the gap now between the top two is extended to just over 7 tenths as Chris Butcher trying to keep Lewis McGlade and looks like Mike Bell, his teammate from Smart Power Racing. They come through, they absolutely fly through the chicane at a rate of knots, and Chris Butcher could be very close to... he's gone round the outside through into Tower Bend. Has Lewis McGlade. That's a great move if he can pull that off. As now Mike Bell will try and get one up on his teammate, but I don't think Chris Butcher will be very, very happy about that. Oh, McGlade off into the wall, and who was that with him behind?
Butcher,
that was Chris Butcher. So they dropped down, and that's more. Oh my goodness me! Is that how to keep your foot planted in there, Lewis McGlade? Because he literally went over big patches of grass, and that focus was completely straight lined all the way through.
It's one way to do it.
That is the way to do it. John Stout, that isn't a famous Ballesteros. No, you're thinking about Seve Ballesteros, the famous golfer who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. He is not related, but Sandro is our youngest competitor on the grid. As Ross McGregor, in the meantime, has been closing on Jack Nicholls. And the gap now between them is about 7 tenths of a second as they go through into Hawthorne Bend. But yeah, John Stout, let's just have a look at this replay here. So you see that he goes around to the outside. He's trying to turn in, but just trying to keep him a little bit wide. A little bit of rubbing there, as now McGlade powers past, gets half a car length of
It's on the way into the Jim Clark S's, and they've made contact at high speed.
Yeah, and with the front-wheel drive car, the minute you tap it, or even a rear-wheel drive car, it will start spinning. Is now Ross McGregor really close and personal with Jack Nicholls. Nicholls trying to go defensive. McGregor has a real turn of pace in the Ford Focus as they go through. So really, really good racing. I mean, Ross McGregor. I mean, I know he's a very credible racer in his own right. You know, he's racing the E-Team Brit GT3 Challenge. He's raced for through multiple different competitions. He's raced for Sancho SimSport amongst other teams in a lot of other competitions. But you can just see how now Jack Nicholls is going to have to start fighting, and he's got 2 laps to keep a hold of second here at Croft.
It's getting down to the final stages now. I think it's a case of Jack's going to have to focus on trying to defend from Ross. Unfortunately, he's done a really good job to be able to try and stay with Dan Kell all race. But now it may just be, like I say, Ross McGregor has slowly crept up on the front pair, and Jack is in his sights. As we can see, also just going back slightly, that Chris Butcher and Lewis McGlade are continuing their on-track rivalry side by side through Hawthorne's. Contact from the front of McGlade's Focus onto the back of the Astra, and Phil Morby and Aidan Millward are closing in. In fact, it looks as though, yeah, McGlade's gone round. Contact with the tyres, I think, in the chicane.
Yeah, still getting very, very dicey here in the latter stages, but what a battle we've got here between these two for the runner-up spot here in race 3 of the evening here at Croft. But it's just been absolutely mind-blowing. Craig Willard goes, that won't buff out. Yeah, I'm afraid the Megwires won't come in handy.
So McGregor's got Nicholls as well on the way from Sunny Out. Yeah, he has. He's got ahead. He's held him out to dry on the outside line of Sunny Out, coming through the complex now, and he's ahead of the Mercedes. So it's up to Jack. He's got 1 lap left to see if he can try and take second position back from the Ford Focus driver.
Yeah, John Stout's going, nah, a bit of teacup. Well, you try telling Dan that.
Just a small touch.
On to the last lap we go. So Dan Kell has a lead of around about 3.7 seconds ahead of Ross McGregor. Jack Nicholls, if he can get a really good run, I mean, we've seen it from the Mercedes. Look, he's closed up already before they're going into the halfway point of Clairvaux. So Jack Nicholls, don't count him out. You know, he's had a race win. He's had an 8th place. He's got reverse grid pole. He's in the top 3 at the moment, and in many respects, he is trying to close. And Toby Davis. Oh, now Bradley Brockey's BMW is looking a bit forlorn. That front bumper is not there.
Yes. That's missing. Definitely.
Yeah, I think
Maybe running on fresh air potentially.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that new sort of wind hydroelectric power? Wind assistance.
That's the one. Experimental engine.
The fan car's taken on a whole different meaning. It's in the front, not the back. Slattery and McGlade have actually unfortunately retired. But we're coming to the final throws of this race as Phil Morby trying to close on Chris Butcher for 8th place.
I want to give a shout out to Toby Davis. He's managed to make some good ground up in this race. He's been quite quiet and keeping it clean. So he's been able to recoup some honour after taking pole position in race 1.
Now that was a move and a half from Chris Butcher there. Yep. He got around the outside of Phil Morby as now the checkered flag has waved and Dan Kell has taken the win for Sancho Simsport and the 89 Ford Focus. Ross McGregor takes the podium. Jack Nicholls takes his second podium of the evening. A first win, a first race victory, and a 3rd place here at Croft, as Toby Davis takes 4th, Scott Sovic 5th, Mike Bell takes 6th, as we have the battle here between Max Spooner and Daniel Hyde. They're battling over 12th position. Looks like Spooner, if he gets the traction coming out of the corner, the pair clash side panels. But Max Spooner will again take some points for E-Team Brit. Sylvain Vestier will round out the top 15 positions, it looks like, as there comes the hydrogen powered by fresh air, as per John Stout's comment on YouTube. So Sylvain Vestier, in his 3rd race, his first ever evening appearance, will take a single point here in the final race of the evening. So Dan Kell takes the win. Ross McGregor in 2nd, Jack Nicholls in 3rd, ahead of Toby Davis, Scott Sovic, and Ray Kell says, well done, Dan, brilliant win. And it's been quite interesting so far. So let's have a look at the results from this race here for the 3rd and final race of the evening here at Croft for the 7th round of the Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship. Dan Kell takes the win after 15 laps ahead of Ross McGregor from R&Co Motorsport. Jack Nicholls takes the 2nd podium of the evening, taking P3, having started from reverse grid pole with the number 8 being drawn out of the hat after race 2. Toby Davis and Scott Sovic round out the top 5 positions. We've got Mike Bell in 6th, Ben Willis in 7th, Chris Butcher in 8th, Phil Morby in 9th, with Aidan Millward rounding out the top 10 positions. Scott Mitchell would round out the top 11, having started from the pit lane along with teammate Ed Straw. Daniel Hyde would beat Max Spooner to 12th at the flag in the drag race, the finish when the pair clashed side panels. Graham Slattery from Rage Racing and Sylvain Vessier from E-Team Brit to round out the points-paying positions here this evening. Ed Straw close to getting another position, possibly in his pocket, and then taking a 2nd successive points finish here this evening, but it wasn't to be. Jean-Michel Loriot, Sandro Ballesteros, and Bradley Brockies round out the 19 that did finish, with Daniel Slattery, Lewis McGlade, and Matt Webb, unfortunately DNFing in this race. And I think very shortly I might be heading down to speak to some of the drivers. So hopefully, let's see. Right, looks like we've got a few in. I'm going to head on down there, Phil, and speak to some drivers.
Enjoy.
Right, so first up, let's have a chat with Toby Davis. Toby, great drive in race 3, but it hasn't been easy this evening here at Croft, is it?
No. Firstly, hello all. I had a decent setup going, and obviously put it on pole position, which I was very happy about. And I think my pace is there, but I haven't worked out how to look after the tyres. Tried something different with my driving style in race 3, and it seemed to work. So where I'm hopefully going to carry that through to the next few rounds.
Yeah, I think it has been the case where we've seen some considerable sort of strength with that Astra, and then all of a sudden we've seen incidents where sometimes it hasn't been your fault. There's been an incident where you've been sort of caught up in the middle of it, but it's really good to see you sort of firing back on all 4 cylinders in that Astra, mate. Well done this evening, and great job in race 3.
Thank you very much. Yeah, hopefully I can carry this through and continue doing well.
Brilliant. We'll see you at Knock Hill in a couple of weeks' time, Toby.
Cheers, mate.
Okay, right. We'll also have a chat with Smile Power Racing's Mike Bell, I believe. So, evening, Mike.
Hello.
So it's been a very close force affair this evening at Croft, with the Smile Power racing cars and everyone else having a lot of let's just say a lot of good dices and a few incidents that a few people might have taken notice of.
I reckon rugged might be the appropriate word to describe it. But yeah, when you put it on a track, where at the end of the day, this is a competitive grid. Things that have happened in the last couple of weeks have kind of got everyone a bit on edge, and put that type of grid onto a track like Croft, where to make an overtake you kind of have to be very bold, or the other guy has to make a mistake, and the contact's inevitable. But I mean, there were definitely lines drawn in the sand out there, and some people went over it and others didn't. So I mean, speaking for myself, I had a fantastic fight in race 2 with Ross McGregor. Like, it wasn't, there was contact, there was little nudges going on, leaning on each other, but like, that's touring car racing. So like, that was really fun. But race 1 I'm still kind of aggrieved about, if I'm brutally honest.
Well, I think everyone does have those races that they, first of all, really want to forget. Second of all, have those sort of grievances, and we know that there is a process whereby you can make your points known about that, so that's absolutely fine. But yeah, I think battling away with your own teammate as well, Chris Butcher. That was, and I've got to ask you a question here, Mike. When it comes to battling between the likes of you, Chris, and Scott, are there any sort of team orders, or is it just like, say, look, let's just not take each other out, all right?
We're in a bit of a weird position, where we've got our 3 cars. We've got a driver in contention for the championship, so of course we're gonna try and look out for him. But up to a certain point, him and Scott, to a degree, they run on their own in the races. I mean, as team boss, I'm kind of keeping an eye out and seeing if I can help out where I can. Like, certainly in race 3, a lot of the early part of race 3 was playing rear gunner for Butchie. But we have, we're not gonna say, get out of the way, let the other guy through. But we're also not gonna make it difficult on each other. But we are gonna focus more on trying to work as a unit and move up that way, rather than waste time killing each other.
Yeah, very agree. I agree with you on that one. But well done this evening. Hard fought, close all the way through here at Croft. But not kill is going to be a very different proposition in a couple of weeks' time.
Well, not kill is. I'm quite curious, if I'm honest.
Mm-hmm.
Not kill is a track where you just have to throw the car around with reckless abandon in order to actually be quick through the entirety of the first 2/3 of not kill. And with the track limits rules that are in place here, they are very tight. And working out not kill, which is a tight track anyway, like everything I said about Croft rings true for not kill, but more, So
yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how people navigate within the confines that we get put under. But hey, we'll see, and to the aggressor go the spoils, I guess.
Indeed. Well done this evening, Mike. Congratulations, and a good effort for Smile Power Racing, all 3 cars making it through. So yeah, have a good one, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yep, thanks for having us.
All right, Scott Sovic, we'll head to you now as well. Evening, Scott. Again, I think probably as Mike said, it's been quite ultra competitive here at Croft this evening. How is it from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the racing today was definitely cleaner than it was at Snetterton, if only a tiny bit, but most of the time. But yeah, qualifying wasn't perfect for me. I didn't really get a good lap in. Race 1 was kind of just got caught behind a couple of people after the start. Race 2, yeah, quite tight there. Don't want to I can't really comment too much on that because it was quite aggressive in front of me, and I was getting caught out all the time by people going slowly. But that's how it is when it's a close field. Although it should be said, when I was on the hards, I definitely felt like I had a much better feeling on the car towards the end of the race than I did with the mediums. But race 3 is just that was honestly a bit of a nightmare because I didn't feel like the car was quite there, and I really didn't have too much confidence with the turning on of it. It just felt horrible.
Yeah, so quite a big sort of disparity between the option and the prime tyres there. But going to Knockhill in a couple of weeks' time, what's your thoughts about that track, and do you think that's going to suit the characteristics of the Vauxhall Astra?
Well, as for, I think Mike Bell said a lot about that it's going to be very, very tight, and it already being a tight track, plus the field here, it's going to be very, very aggressive. I think we're going to see a lot more contact between cars than we've done the last couple of rounds. As for the Astra, I'm not really confident. Well, first two sectors I'm pretty confident that the car will work, but the third sector, the airpin, is just, I think it's going to be a bit of a struggle coming out of there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, Scott, thanks very much for your time, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks at Knockhill.
Right, thanks. See you then.
Ross McGregor, debut, and good to catch up with you. Obviously, having talked to you through other series as well. What a debut for R&Co Motorsport, and especially with you. I mean, you were literally flying around this circuit like I couldn't believe. Flatlining the chicane. You were chasing the likes of Jack Nicholls and a few other people that are established in this championship so far, and to come in at round 7 and just literally put the cat amongst the pigeons. You did a blooming good job out there, mate.
Yeah, thanks very much. It went a lot better than what I thought it would, especially with ballast as well, 45 kilos of ballast. So that was kind of new to me, but I've raced a lot of these guys before, so I kind of know that I'd be in the mix somewhere, but I didn't quite expect to be at the front.
Yeah, and also picking up a podium, second place in race 3 ahead of Jack Nicholls. And it was quite nip and tuck between the pair of you, because myself and Phil, we didn't really know whether you were going to make a move and then Jack was going to make a move, because it looked like your tyre conservation was a little bit more strategic and you used it to your advantage, because obviously with Jack punching the hole in the dirty air, you're having to do less work, so it's not so abrasive on the tyres. You're having to put less throttle input, being able to brake and judge it a little bit better to make sure you maximise entry and exit out of corners. And was that something that you were, you found it sort of came alive a bit more on the Focus as the race proceeded in race 3?
Well, I was trying as hard as I could all the way through. As soon as I got into third, Dan and Jack were battling quite hard ahead, but they still kept a really good pace. But just like 2 or 3 laps to go, Jack just seemed to drop back a bit, so I thought, well, his tyres must have gone. So, and then when I overtook him, it was just pure tyre life that got me through. So, yeah, I was not really strategic. I was trying as hard as I could, but whatever I did seemed to work. So, I was happy with that.
Well done, Ross, and
cheers.
Knockhill in a couple of weeks. Obviously, a track. That's going to be a different challenge, I think, as both Scott and Mike were both alluding to earlier, that it's a very tight circuit. You get it wrong through the twisty stuff, especially with the ascents and the descents. You get it 2 wheels, that can throw the car over quite easily, can't it?
Yeah, and I'm absolutely happy with that. I live like 10 minutes away from Knockhill, and I've done thousands of laps in it and sims and stuff like that. So, to be honest, when I saw Knockhill was the next round, I thought, I'll just do Croft, do the best I can, lose the ballast for Knockhill, and then have a proper go at it. So that's what I'm going to try and do.
That's fair enough. Well, congratulations tonight, Ross, and thank you for joining us here at round 7 at Croft, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks at Knockhill.
Cheers, Alex. Right,
last interview of the evening. Chris Butcher, welcome back into the interview booth. Really, really good to see you back on winning ways for race 2, having lost all the success ballast from coming into this round with 60 kilos for qualifying in the race. But it's not easy starting from right at the very back to have to sort of go through the field. You got to P12, if I remember correctly, at the end of the race, and then you were just like a man possessed in race 2, weren't you?
Yeah. I knew race 1 was going to be difficult. It was my own doing. I managed to pick up a cutting penalty in qualifying at Snetterton, so knew it was going to be tough. So I thought I'd get the option tyre out of the way early, because it was pretty slow, and it was challenging. I was trying to keep myself out of trouble, and I managed to get caught up in other people's incidents a few times. So I feel like I could have maybe been a little bit further into the top 10 in race 1, but yeah, it set me up really nicely for race 2. The faster tyre, no weight, and yeah, I knew I had to be decisive with my move, make progress quickly, and then it was just a case of keeping the pressure on Scott at the end, and he unfortunately for him made a mistake on the last lap, which let me get through. Otherwise, I don't think I would have quite made it, but yeah, pretty happy with that. Croft is one of my local tracks, so nice to get a win there. And I'm not sure where the championship is, but I think it's going to be pretty close between me and Dan Kell after that. So I'm looking forward to the fight, last few rounds of the season.
Yeah, especially when we go to, Knockhill, very tight, very technical. You've got to get it right on quali, but also the racing as well, as I was just saying to Ross. Like you put it on 2 wheels in the air through the first sector, that could be your race over and done within a moment's notice. And that's I think that's one of the key factors that we've got to remember here, that you go from a great circuit like Croft, where it's fast, hefty braking, you've got great chicanes that you can literally straight line through, you've got great overtaking opportunities all the way across the circuit, and then you go to something different where Knockhill gives you maybe 1 or 2 chances at the very most to overtake, especially going onto the main straightaway, coming through the final corner, because before then it's going to be like it'd be like a bit like touring cars anyway, where people go, yeah, it's a bit processional, but wait until you see possibly 3 wide coming out of the final corner going onto the main straightaway.
Yeah, it's going to be really challenging. I mean, these cars, when you watch touring cars on TV, you see them going on 2 wheels regularly at Knockhill, but you can't really do that in this mod. If you get too much air, you're gonna roll it. So it's going to be really difficult. It's going to be challenging, and like you say, there's not many overtaking opportunities. So it's I think it's going to be hard to make progress in the races if you have a poor qualifying, and yeah, it could be a little bit brutal.
Well, Chris, congratulations on your race 2 victory here for round 7, mate, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks at Knockhill.
Thanks very much.
Phil, a lot of great insights there from everyone I spoke to, and really good to hear from Chris Butcher. So, like I said, he was that man-possessed. No one was going to stop him, not even Scott Mitchell. And, I think he was Chris was very honest there about, if Scott had not made that unforced error, he would have won that race.
Definitely. Like I was saying before, Scott did everything possible he could in race 2. He almost had that in the bag, and it took the slightest of errors, and that's what allowed Chris through. But Chris is also hunting him down towards the end of the race as well. Like you say, man possessed. He really pushed the Astra hard, used up what tyre life he had left. So it could have taken a mistake from either of them, and it would have gone either way. Unfortunately, like I say, for Mitchell, it's gone the way of Chris Butcher, and he's taken a local win. But Scott's definitely shown this evening that he's capable of doing just as well as as anyone out there. He's podiums, he's pushed hard, he's led a race. There's more to come, definitely, from the King's Racing driver.
And also watch out for Ed Straw. If he's back for Knockhill in a couple of weeks' time,
and with no extra driver ballast either, so he should have a better time of it as well.
Exactly. So there we go. That's it from round 7 of the 2020 Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship, having been held by this fantastic circuit here at Croft. So on behalf of Phil Kinch and myself, Alex Goldschmidt, it's a very, very good evening, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time when we head north of the border to Scotland, as Knockhill will host the 8th round of the season. Until then, have a very good evening, and see you in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks for watching.